Hokage give me a face. Dragon Ball, Chapter 41-60. Chapter 41_Bell Ranch. After all made their decisions, everyone planned to leave here. Yizan was also going to visit Immortal Turtle and ask about Immortal Jeline. The back he saw at the #1 martial arts conference in the world was too similar. The Demon King Piccolo is here, but so far the Devil King Piccolo has no intention of appearing. Therefore, Yizan is going to ask Immortal Turtle about Immortal Jeline. Bulma and Chi-Chi also said that they were bored when they were idle, so they went with Yizan and the others to play at Immortal Turtle. Chi didn't need to say more. Naturally, Chi-Chi followed Yizan because she thought she was Yizan's wife. On the helicopter, Yizan and the others were sitting in the cabin, looking at the vast sea, full of anticipation, and finally got the Saiyan bloodline. Next, he needs to comprehend Chi. Next, with the appearance of the great Demon King Piccolo, he was going to use his Chi to fight Piccolo. After all, if he didn't use his Chi all the time, his Chi practice would never improve. And Fairy Garen, I have to go there myself, not only because of Demon King Piccolo, but also because of Immortal Jalen's immortal beans. My face fruit will consume my stamina, while immortal beans can replenish my stamina, so Yizan is prepared to make some. 180. There is also the creator of Dragon Ball who is one with Piccolo, the god from the planet Namek. You must also visit. Moreover, Yizan is ready to wait for his strength to become stronger, and prepare to visit all corners of the universe. But without this powerful strength, you still have to practice well. While Yizan was thinking about this, the plane came to the island of the Immortal Turtle. As soon as everyone landed from the plane, from the house of Immortal Turtle, a big beauty walked out of the door and waved to everyone, "Welcome back." Beauty. Seeing this blue-haired beauty, Yizan couldn't help his eyelids twitching, and staring at her, he couldn't bear to leave. This beauty is very sexy, a woman with a different taste all over her body, although not as youthful as Bulma, but more attractive. Wearing an apron and wearing a blue short skirt, she looks very beautiful, full of murderous part, coupled with those snow-white legs and ass. Yizan can't help swallowing when he sees it. She is really a mature woman. What? Seeing Yizan's fixed eyes, Bulma couldn't help pinching Yizan's arm and whispered, "Why, I'm drooling when I see how beautiful they are." It hurt so much that the flesh was pinched, but Yizan could only reluctantly said softly, "No, hee, no matter how beautiful you are not as beautiful." Humph. Bulma snorted and ignored Yizan, but he was very happy inside. After all, the man he liked praised him. Immortal Turtle walked to the front, stretched out his hand and introduced, "This is Miss Lanchi, this is Bulma, Yizan, let's get to know you." After saying hello to each other, Lanchi showed a bright smile and beckoned to Yizan and Bulma. "You are all tired, my meal is almost ready, everyone come in and wait for a while." Okay. Everyone nodded and walked into the hut of Immortal Turtle. Sure enough, it was different when there was a woman, and the house was clean and tidy. After a while, Lanky made delicious dishes, brought them up, and put them on the table, filling the table. Looking at the delicious food, Wukong was already drooling, ignoring the expressions of the people around him, and said, "I'm going to start." After he finished speaking, he picked up a chicken leg and devoured it, but everyone was used to Wukong, who had a big appetite. I have to say that Lanchi's craftsmanship is quite good, the food and delicious food made, even Yizan couldn't help but praise her a few words, making Lanchi a little shy. While eating, Immortal Turtle suddenly lowered his voice and said to Yizan, "Don't make Lanchi angry, otherwise, the consequences will be really serious." Although Yizan was a little strange, he still said that he knew. Whether he listened to it or not was another matter. Hum. Suddenly, a fly flew around the dining table and surrounded Lanky. Can't help being bothered by this, Lanchi couldn't help but sneezed. She sneezed. The turtle immortals and Wukong who knew Lanky's expressions changed greatly, and they quickly jumped out of the chair and found something to protect themselves. In the next second, Lanky's blue hair suddenly changed color, from blue to gold. Although it was still very beautiful, The expression and temperament on his face changed instantly. Crack! With a hard slap on the table, Lan Chi stood up from the chair and roared angrily, "What is this food? Is it eaten by humans?" "Miss Lanky, what's the matter with you?" Booma still didn't understand the situation and wanted to ask for clarification. Only then did Yi Zan remember that there was indeed such a beautiful woman in the original book that as long as she sneezed, she would turn into a blonde and her temper would become extremely hot. Yi Zan thought of this and quickly pulled Booma. "Don't go there, she just transformed, and now she is very hot." Before everyone could leave, Lan Chi slammed the table heavily, then looked at Yi Zan and Bulma and said, "I can't stand this kind of life. The food is so bad, the house is so small. You two, accompany me to rob silver. Okay, I want to buy a plane and a villa." With that said, Lan Chi turned around and ran to his room to get a weapon, ready to go out for a big fight. Seeing Lan Chi, whose personality has changed drastically, Bulma quickly asked the turtle immortal, "Don't hurry up and think of a way to make Miss Lan Chi recover." Immortal Turtle shook her head and said, "There is no other way, only after she sneezes again, she can recover." "Then what should I do?" Booma's face was also very anxious. It was the first time she encountered such a thing, and she was really worried that Lan Chi would not really pull him and Yi Zan to rob silver. Yi Zan said helplessly, "It seems that I'll take the shot." Following Yi Zan's words, there was a loud slamming of the door, and Lan Chi came out with a big laugh, holding several submachine guns in his left and right hands, threw them directly on the table, and said to Yi Zan and Booma, "Little ones, let's go." Chapter 42-Cat Fairy. Yi Zan didn't pay attention to Lan Chi, but quickly hand-sealed with both hands, the speed changed very quickly, and shouted, "Ninjutsu, object manipulation." Buzz, buzz. Several flies that Yi Zan had been eyeing for a long time now buzzed over and surrounded Lan Chi, affecting her vision. "Go away, nasty flies." Lan Chi waved his hand vigorously, trying to drive away these flies, but to no avail. Finally, under the influence of these flies, Lan Chi sneezed again and returned to his original appearance, with blue curly hair, and his expression softened. "Oh, what happened to me just now? Did I lose my temper? I'm so sorry." Lan Chi, who had recovered, immediately apologized to Yi Zan and the others. It's finally okay." The turtle immortals let out a sigh of relief, and quickly walked out from the side and came to the side. This is just a small episode at the dining table. After eating, Yi Zan and others sat on the sofa outside the island, enjoying the sea breeze and sunshine in the afternoon, which is really a different kind of comfortable thing. While drinking the drink, Yi Zan said to Immortal Turtle, "By the way, Immortal Turtle, I want to ask you how to make Master Chi stronger and let it stay in the body longer." The turtle immortal leaned on the chair, took a few sips of juice, and while flipping through the Flower Girl magazine, he said, "I may not be able to help you with this issue, because I only know how to use it. How to teach you? You have to rely on yourself to understand. After all, Chi is a powerful energy generated according to each person's difference. If you really want to learn, there is someone who can teach you." "Who?" Yi Zan hurriedly asked. If he wanted to become a top powerhouse in the Dragon Ball world, if he didn't know how to use his chi, that would be absolutely impossible. "My master, Mr. Wutato," Immortal Turtle said with a few slaps, and his eyes became a little deeper, as if he recalled many things in the past. "Isn't your teacher already dead?" Yi Zan said casually. The turtle immortal is so old, it's no wonder that his master still exists. Immortal Turtle nodded and said, "Yes, my master is dead, but there is one person who can still help you. You go to the Holy Land to find Lord Jaline, and he can help you practice." Jia Lin. A slight smile appeared on Yi Zan's mouth. He still remembered that this was a cat fairy, and he planted the fairy beans. "Then I'll go find Jia Lin." Yi Zan nodded, suddenly stood up from the chair, moved his muscles and bones, and was ready to set off. Looking at Yi Zan in surprise, Immortal Turtle said, "Are you going now?" "Yeah." Yi Zan nodded. "Cultivation doesn't wait for anyone. I have to hurry up and give me Jia Lin's address." Seeing that Yizan practiced so hard, Immortal Turtle would not stop him, and told Yizan the location of the Jaline Holy Land Tower. Just after walking a few steps, Yizan turned around and said to Immortal Turtle, "By the way, Bulma and Kiki will stay here for a few days. If I come back and hear Bulma and Kiki say that you make some, you know the consequences of lustful things." Yizan said, patted the air with both hands, and Immortal Turtle covered his head for a moment. There was no way. Immortal Turtle was really scared by Yizan. Seeing this, Yizan evoked a smile and said to Bulma and Chi-Chi, "Then I'll go first." Yubu. Yizan didn't use anything to help him when he came to the sea. He jumped up and flew into the sky. He quickly flew into the distance and disappeared from the sight of Immortal Turtle. Although the location of the Jaline Holy Land Pagoda was still far away, Yizan finally arrived at the bottom of the Jaline Holy Land Pagoda before dark under Yizan's full acceleration. In a forest, the Jaline Holy Land Tower was inserted straight into the cloud from the ground, and the pure white tower was like a ladder, which was inserted vertically from the sky. Is this the Jaline Holy Land Pagoda? Yizan raised his head and glanced at the tower body, and found that the tower was really high enough. At first glance, he could not see where the end was. If ordinary people came to climb this tower, it is estimated that they would have to climb at least halfway and fall down because of exhaustion, right? However, this height was not a problem for Yizan. Moon Step. Once again, he performed the 6 naval styles plus the telekinesis technique, and he quickly rose into the air and flew towards the top of the Galen Tower. Soon, Yizan saw the body of the tower. On the top of the tower, there was a disc-like thing, which was the residence of the cat fairy, Jaline. Shoo! Yizan dodged up, rushed up, and landed in the disc pavilion. After so many years, finally someone came up again. Yizan had just landed when a voice sounded behind him. Looking back, I only saw a big white cat with a cane in his hand, standing like a human, talking to Yizan behind him. "You are the cat fairy Jaline?" Yizan asked. Garen nodded. "It's me. Do you have anything to do with me? But no one has come up for many years." Yizan directly stated his purpose. "I was recommended by Immortal Turtle to come to you. I want to run with Master's anger. Can you teach me how to do it?" Immortal Turtle. "It's that brat from Wu Tian, he's still alive," Jialin said lightly, with an old-fashioned look. In fact, Jialin is already very old. As early as when he was young, he taught him to practice. Now, I don't know how old he is. Glancing at the sky outside, Garen nodded and said, "If that's the case, then come with me, and I'll take you to a place." Okay. Yizan nodded and followed behind Jialin to the middle of the top of the tower. "You sit down." Garen pointed to the middle of the pavilion. Not knowing what the hell this Jialin was going to do, Yizan had to follow what Jialin said, sitting cross-legged on the stone slab in the pavilion, and began to meditate. "Meditate, breathe." Jialin walked around behind Yizan and reminded. Suddenly, Immortal Jaline walked behind Yizan, raised the ancient vine cane in his hand, and knocked hard on the back of Yizan's head. Chapter 43-Spiritual World. Although Yizan felt Immortal Jalin's movements, he forced himself to endure the thought of counterattack. Before Yizan did not resist, Immortal Jalin's withered vine cane hit Yizan's head. In an instant, a shining light circle emanated from the scepter and expanded rapidly. Along Yizan's body, spread out around. Om. At this time, Yizan only felt a coolness in his mind, and his thoughts suddenly floated, as if he had come to another invisible world. At this time, Jialin's voice reached Yizan's mind. "This is the spiritual world. I will send you to Wu Tato now, he will tell you how to use qi." Yizan was really surprised at this moment. He could force himself to enter the spiritual world. This is not a small method. You must know that in order to prevent demonic illusion in the Hokage world, your own spirit is very powerful, but only by tapping, you can force yourself into the spiritual world. This method is also very incredible. Om. After Jialin's words disappeared, Yizan only felt that his mind was spinning, and his soul seemed to be pulled out and went to another place. Shish. In the mental space, Yizan suddenly fell from the air and hit a big tree directly. Ouch! Yizan rubbed his painful ass, and slowly looked around. The environment was already different from before, and he seemed to have come to a strange place. The mountains and rivers are beautiful here, surrounded by flowers and birds, and a few birds are chirping and dancing beside Yizan, looking very anxious. Yizan took a closer look, and it turned out that he almost crushed their nest, and quickly said, "Don't worry, I won't hurt you." Leaning down, Yizan jumped off the tree and came to the ground, nodding slightly in his heart. It seems that this is the spiritual world, but it doesn't seem to be my spiritual world. Yizan said and walked away. Crash! Not long after, Yizan heard the sound of running water coming from the front. The places with water are usually the gathering places of villages. Yizan thought and walked towards the running water. When Yizan just walked to the river, across a few small trees, Yizan saw through the leaves that several women were bathing in the river. It just so happened that the place Yizan could see was a small pool with a waterfall above it, which hit the bottom and became a pool, and the pool went down and became a small river. With such a hot scene, Yizan couldn't help taking a few breaths. Yizan admits that he is not a decent person either. Kunzi, there are beauties taking a bath, and he doesn't look at it without looking at it. Slutty thief, what are you doing? Suddenly, a sharp shout came from behind Yizan, and Yizan's body trembled in fright. Fuck, it was discovered. Yizan didn't turn his head back, and ran straight ahead, dodged a few times, and disappeared beside the small trees. However, Yizan, who had already revealed his whereabouts, shocked the women who were bathing below, and all of them screamed at the top of their throats. Immediately, the woods became a mess. Outside the woods, the men in the village who were working, heard the sound, and they all rushed over to surround Yizan. Seeing that someone was chasing him, Yizan hurriedly used his speed, quickly left the woods, and ran outside. If someone knew that Yizan peeked at the woman taking a bath, his fame would soon be ruined. Whoosh! Just as he settled outside, a strong gust of wind rushed from behind him, slashing like a sharp blade. However, before the slash fell, Yizan sensed the surge of chi from the chakra in his body, dodged to the right, and avoided the blow. Boom! The blow did not hit Yizan, but instead cut off a large tree next to it and fell to the ground. Taking this opportunity, Yizan turned around, looked at the person behind him, frowned slightly, and asked, "Who are you?" I saw a man who was not tall standing behind Yizan. Just looking at him gave me a great sense of oppression. Of course, this sense of oppression was nothing to Yizan. "I'm Wu Tato, who are you, and why are you trespassing in our village?" said Wu Tato with a two-stroke beard. He didn't expect to see Wu Tato so soon. Yizan hurriedly jumped down from the tree, stood face to face with Wu Tato, and said, "I'm Yizan, I came here to practice with you. I want to learn from you how to use chi." Quote. At this time, a large group of villagers with hoes and poles ran out from behind Wu Tato. They chased here and pointed at Yizan. "Mr. Wu Tato, this guy is peeking at other people's baths, and he must be arrested. Punish him well." In particular, one of the girls with pigtails took a few steps forward, pointed at Yizan and said, "Dad, he peeked. I recognize his back." Yizan was about to fall down immediately. He didn't expect his back to be recognized by others. It might be because his clothes were different from this era, so he was so conspicuous. The most important thing is that I really stepped on the shit, and the target of peeping failure turned out to be Wu Tato's daughter. However, Yizan looked at Wu Tato's daughter, and she was really pretty. Hearing the words of the villagers behind him, Wu Tato's eyes narrowed slightly. He raised his hand, and said to the people behind him, "Everyone, be quiet." Wu Tato was still very important in this village. As soon as he waved his hand, the villagers behind him immediately quieted down. The strength that Yizan showed just now surprised Wu Tato. The attack he showed was actually dodged by Yizan. If there is a conflict with Yizan now, it will be very bad for the whole village. After all, they are still facing another crisis. Seeing that Wu Tato didn't speak, Yizan quickly waved his hand and said, "This must be a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to peek at other people's baths. Please believe me." Wu Tato gave Yizan a careful look and said, "We'll talk about this later. Don't you want to come to practice with me? Then come with me." Unexpectedly, Wu Tato agreed to take him to practice. Yizan was a little surprised, but since he agreed, he naturally followed quickly. "Dad." Wu Tato's daughter called him a little unwillingly when she saw her father being taken away by the bad guy Yizan. Taking Yizan to the direction of the village, Wu Tato waved his hand and said to the surrounding villagers, "Everyone, go back quickly, I will explain this to everyone. Remember, be careful to go out these 2 days. The mountain demon will come out at any time." Hearing the latter sentence, all the villagers in the village changed their expressions, clenched the hoe in their hand, nodded, and took their family back. Chapter 44 I teach you to use gas. Soon, Yizan followed Wu Tato to his martial arts hall. In several nearby villages and towns, Wu Tato's martial arts hall was the most stylish and had many disciples. After all, he was a leader in the martial arts world. Wu Tato did not let Yizan contact the other disciples, but took him directly to his room. After sitting down, Wu Tato said directly, "Do you know why I brought you back?" Yizan smiled lightly and said confidently, "Because I'm handsome enough, right?" "Ha ha." Wu Tato gave a speechless smile and then said, "Wrong, it's because the nearby villages are facing great danger. I need your help, so I left you." Wu Tato can be considered upright, and he confessed all his thoughts to Yizan without reservation. After hearing this, Yizan was not too surprised. From the conversation between Wu Tato and the villagers just now, he knew that there must be something wrong with them. As a result, it was exactly 30 that Wu Tato encountered a major crisis, that is, he encountered a very huge and terrifying monster. That huge monster, Wu Tato is not an opponent, and if he wants to subdue the monster, Wu Tato needs a helper, to be precise, a cannon fodder that can attract monsters, and Wu Tato saw after Zan's speed, the idea of letting Yizan help himself to resist this monster came up. "What kind of mountain demon is very powerful?" Yizan said. "Yeah." Wu Tato nodded and said, "Yes, many people have died tragically in his hands, and recently, he has started robbing young girls nearby, so he must be eliminated quickly." "Can't even you defeat him?" Yizan asked. Although it was hundreds of years ago, the strength of Wu Tato is definitely the peak of existence in this era. How could he even deal with a mountain monster? No. Wu Tato shook his head slightly and said, "It's not that he can't beat him, but that this mountain monster escapes very fast. Every time he encounters him, he escapes after a few moves, and when he reaches the top of his mountain, there are organs he set up everywhere and it's hard to find him." "So it is." Yizan suddenly realized, "So you can't beat it. Then why should I help you?" Yizan's words made Wu Tato stunned for a moment, and then he said to Yizan, "I'll teach you to be angry." "Okay, I promise to help you, but you also have to remember your promise." Yizan nodded and agreed to the request. Although Yizan is much stronger than the martial arts master, the master of Qi is not as good as the master of the martial arts world. It is like a person who has very powerful power, but does not know how to use it, and needs a person to guide. Dong dong. Suddenly, there was an eager knock on the door, and a man shouted anxiously outside, "It's not good, master, junior sister Koyuki was taken away by the mountain demon." "What?" As soon as he heard the news, Wu Tato stood up angrily and rushed outside. "What the hell happened? Did Koyuki not come back just now?" "Koyuki came back just now, but then went out again, saying that he was going to get his clothes, but I didn't expect that he was taken away by the mountain demon on the way, and there were still villagers who saw it and came to tell us." At this moment, Wu Tato's face turned ashen. He looked at Yizan next to him, and said, "It seems that you need your help now." Yizan had already agreed to Wu Tato's request, but Yizan would not refuse. He stood up and nodded. "Then what are you waiting for? Let's go now." In order to understand the operation of Qi as soon as possible, Yizan also wanted to quickly defeat the mountain demon and save Koyuki. Soon, under the leadership of Wu Tian and several disciples, Wu Taido and Yizan both came to the place where Koyuki was kidnapped before. The jungle on the mountain is very messy, and there are some traces left on the ground. It seems that Koyuki fought and struggled with the mountain demon before he was captured. Wu Taido's face was ugly. He looked at the lofty mountain in the distance, his eyes sank, and he couldn't hide the murderous aura, and said to Yizan, "Let's go, it's getting late now, don't hurry to rescue Koyuki, the consequences are unimaginable." Quote. Yizan didn't think much, agreed, and rushed to the direction of the mountain with Wu Taido. The two figures kept flashing on the tree in the woods, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Shish, shish. The two figures suddenly landed and came to the foot of the mountain, with a strong aura, scaring some birds and beasts at the foot of the mountain away. These two were Wu Taido and Yizan, who came to save people. They came to the mountain demon's territory and were about to go there. Wu Taido pointed to the 1,000-meter-high mountain and said to Yizan, "The mountain demon lives on the top of the mountain. We have to go up there to save Koyuki." Yizan nodded and said, "Then what are you waiting for? Let's go." Saying that, Yizan performed the moon step, flew to the top of the mountain, rose into the air in one step, and rushed out dozens of meters, with a very fast action figure and speed. Wu Taido just wanted to stop Yizan, but seeing that he was walking so fast, he had to follow behind him. As a master in the martial arts world, Wu Taido could also use his chi to float himself in the air, but the distance was very short. It consumes the chi in his body. The two walked towards the top of the mountain one after the other, and when they were halfway through 187, Wu Taido suddenly shouted to Yizan from behind, "Be careful of hidden weapons." As his voice fell, countless black arrows flew out from the mountain below, like raindrops sprayed out, rushing towards Yizan. Shish! Yizan ducked into the sky, dodging the arrows, but instead kicked out a hurricane, bombarding the powerful force below, and all the hidden weapons that shot the arrows were kicked and exploded. Continuing to move forward, Yizan and Wu Taido were about to reach the top of the mountain, but suddenly, a huge black net flew out from below the ground next to it and rushed directly towards Wu Taido. Seeing this scene, even if Wu Taido wanted to hide, it was already too late. The speed at which the net flew out was much faster than the speed at which Wu Taido floated. Pada! Wu Taido was covered by the flying net, and then he quickly pulled down. The whole person was put inside, and he fell into a trap in the mountain. Not good. Looking back at this scene, Yizan hurriedly jumped down, trying to rush down to rescue Wu Taido. However, before he got to the ground, Wu Taido shouted, "Don't worry about me, get to the cave at the top of the mountain to rescue Koyuki. I'll be too late, I have my own way to escape." Chapter 45-Mountain Demon. Hearing this, Yizan nodded, dodged behind, and continued to rush towards the top of the mountain. As Yizan's figure fell, a gust of wind blew out of thin air on the top of the mountain, blowing Yizan's jacket. At this time, the setting sun had already set, and the entire land had fallen into pitch darkness. The soft moonlight rose, and darkness had come. A wolf in the dark night stood on the top of the mountain and whistled towards the sky. Yizan found the mountain demon's cave, stepped directly into it, and roared from his mouth, "Mountain demon, get out of here." The huge roar, with some sonic attacks, has penetrated directly from the outside of the cave to the inside, causing the surrounding stone walls to shake off some dust. And in the innermost part of this cave, there is a huge open space, and the ugly and terrifying mountain monster lives in it. Hearing the sound from outside, the mountain monster's face also becomes extremely ugly. This mountain monster looks like a human-shaped lizard. There are many small bumps on the blue-black skin. It looks very strange, but he has human hands and feet, and his body is a bit human-like. But behind his ass, there is a long tail. His eyes are also very strange, as if he has double pupils, and his head is not very human. Like this, once you go out, it is estimated that many people will be frightened, otherwise it will not be called a mountain demon. On a stone bed in front of him, there was a young and beautiful girl, the one who had found Yizan peeking at the bath earlier, that is, Wu Tato's daughter. At this time, she was lying quietly, her eyes were slightly closed, and she fell into a deep sleep, looking very peaceful. The mountain demon looked at Koyuki, with that vicious face, a seemingly sinister smile suddenly cracked, shot out that long claws, scratched on Koyuki's face, and said with a smile, "Beauty, wait for me a moment, I'll come to accompany you when I clean up that nasty guy outside." After speaking, the mountain demon dodged, his body was like a cyan light, and rushed into a pool next to him, and when he drilled into it, he was directly ambushed inside. Hey! At this time, Yizan had also rushed in from the outside, and his body quickly fell forward. He stopped in the mountain demon's cave, and when he saw Koyuki placed on the stone bed, he walked over boldly. Boom! Unexpectedly, Yizan just walked to Koyuki's side, and from above him, a huge cage made of stone fell directly. Unbiased, just locked Yizan inside. Ha ha! I caught it, the boy who wants a hero to save beauty. At this moment, with a smug laughter, a cyan figure quickly flew out from the pool next to it and landed in front of the huge cage. Yizan quietly looked at the strange-looking monster in front of him without speaking. Yizan was thinking about an extremely serious matter, that is, should he fight with chakra or fight with chi? In the eyes of this strange-looking monster, Yizan's performance was stunned by his own mighty and domineering arrogance. "Are you scared by me? Ha ha ha, I really am the strongest." Shanyao looked at Yizan and laughed. "I wanted you to live a little longer, but, unfortunately, I want to enjoy mine. The prey is gone, so, you should die." The mountain demon threw a bone spur and rushed towards Yizan in the cage. Yizan thought about it for a long time, but still hadn't decided his choice. After hearing the movement, he turned around and grabbed the bone spur that flew over. Bang! Yizan grabbed the bone spur in his hand. With a slight force, he crushed the bone spur into powder and blew it all around. In the end, Yizan was useless, he just used his physical skills to get it done. Yizan casually lifted his right foot and smashed the cage, his figure flashed and kicked forward, slamming into the mountain demon's claws, kicking the mountain demon back several meters. After the mountain demon retreated a few steps, his right hand quickly retracted, and he kept shaking. He looked at Yizan with a little more resentment. "You guy, don't care if you look ugly, it's your fault that you come out to be scary." Hearing this, the mountain demon looked very angry and shouted to Yizan, "What are you talking about? I am the most handsome among the mountain demon clan, how dare you insult me, I want you to die ugly." After he finished speaking, the body of the mountain demon began to undergo huge changes. The lizard-like body began to swell violently, getting bigger a little bit, and the limbs began to grow side by side, and it looked a little more terrifying. In particular, the mouth was suddenly cracked wide, revealing the long, pointed kiba inside, which looked particularly ferocious, and the sharp kiba teeth seemed to be capable of slicing a stone at any time. The mountain demon laughed proudly, stretched his neck, and bit Yizan's side fiercely, opening his mouth wide, as if he wanted to swallow Yizan whole. Seeing the giant kiba of the mountain demon, Koyuki widened his eyes in horror. "Be careful." At the same time, the other claw of the mountain demon also rushed out towards Yizan, grabbed Yizan's body fiercely, grabbed Yizan with a slam, and stuffed it into his mouth, instantly blood overflowing from his mouth. "Is it delicious?" A question made the mountain demon involuntarily nod. "Delicious. Chicken taste, crunch." Exclamation mark. After the mountain demon finished answering, he raised his head instantly, just in time to see the man above his head who should have been eaten by him, looking at him with a smile. That devilish smile was deeply engraved in the mountain demon's mind. Like the ghost of death. Om. At this moment, the mountain demon saw the man's figure disappear, a shadow flashed, and Yizan's figure suddenly appeared behind him. What? The mountain demon realized that something was wrong, turned his head behind him, and looked at Yizan. Why did I suddenly become so strange? The mountain demon was puzzled, but saw his body, but was cut off by Yizan's head. Chapter 46_Martial Arts Genius. Shan Yao's eyes gradually became dim, but he was already dead. Yizan hugged Koyuki and was about to retire. He found a very embarrassing thing. Yizan looked at Koyuki, who was still very normal, and Yuhi's face was dizzy. He couldn't help but ask a Byakugan, "What the hell is this?" Yizan said that although he had heard of it all the time, this was the first time that he had encountered such a good thing. According to legend, one of the essential skills of the protagonist, encountering a girl who had to do things after taking medicine. "I'm so hot, I want to." Koyuki's blurred eyes seemed to discharge as he stared at Yizan. Yuhi's cheek was about to stick to Yizan's heart. Suddenly, Koyuki couldn't help rushing up, pulled Yizan's neck, and kissed him directly. A slippery feeling immediately poured into Yizan's mouth. Touching the tip of his tongue, he felt the softness of Koyuki's fragrant lips, and Yizan's heart skipped a beat. The refreshing feeling made his whole body excited immediately. Just when Yizan was about to do something he liked, a voice sounded in Yizan's mind. "Are you really going to do this?" I fork. 537. Yizan instantly became a Byakugan, because the voice belonged to immortal Jeline. Yizan then remembered that he should exist in a place like an illusion. "Forget it." Yizan shook his head and suppressed his flames. The right hand condensed a faint light, shone a few times on the palm, and then pressed it on Koyuki's shoulder. A breath condensed by chakra poured into Koyuki's body. This air, like a warm current, circulated in Koyuki's body, dispelling Koyuki's desire. Long for Koyuki's eyes to no longer be so confused and hazy, his eyes clear as water, staring at Yizan in front of him, filled with emotion. What happened just now, Koyuki naturally knew very well, but he didn't expect Yizan to save himself without taking advantage of the danger. Gratitude. Koyuki gave Yizan a grateful smile and said, "Thank you." Well, if Koyuki knew what the hell the Masato Kunzi in front of him was, it would be a different reaction. Just as he was talking, an excited voice suddenly came from the door of the cave. "Koyuki, you're all right, it's great." Hearing a voice coming from behind, Yizan looked back and saw that it was Wutato coming. He looks a little embarrassed now, and it is estimated that he came out of the trap and spent a lot of energy. And Koyuki was also very excited when he saw his father. He hurried over, grabbed Wutato's hand, and shouted excitedly, "Dad." Afterwards, Wutato and his daughter talked for a while and went down the mountain with Yizan. The next day, when everyone was running around to tell about the death of the mountain demon, they didn't see Yizan's figure. Similarly, even the most prestigious nearby Wutato also disappeared. The waterfall that Yizan first came to this place, the waterfall, is still the original waterfall, or the original pool, but this time there is no beauty to take a bath. Instead, there are two old men, it is, Yizan and Wutato. Yizan sat quietly on the rock, comprehending cultivation, and Wutato sat opposite Yizan. Qi is a powerful energy generated in the human body after training to a certain intensity. As long as it is used properly, it can exert its greatest destructive power. When a strong person cultivates Qi, he needs to go through hard training and gradually condense in the body. Wutato said lightly, and taught Yizan what he could teach. The place that can hold Qi is the dantian of every strong man. Where is the place to store Qi? Try it now to see if you can store Qi. Wutato said, condensing a Qi from his dantian and turning it into a Qi. Cut to the edge of the waterfall. Hey! As soon as the fiercely descending waterfall encountered the Qi released by Wutato, it was directly separated, and it was cut in half from the middle. Being able to use Qi freely is the way to use Qi. Wutato said word by word. Yizan nodded, slowly closed his eyes, and began to feel the Qi in his body. He had practiced chakra, and it was not difficult to control Qi. Yizan slowly drained a stream of energy from his dantian, which condensed on his palm. Om! Yizan's palm exuded a powerful breath, and that powerful light flashed around, making Wu Tato feel a little dazzling. Drink! With Yizan shouting loudly, the energy condensed in his hands suddenly slashed out, turned into a beam of light, and rushed towards the waterfall. This ray of light was much stronger than that of Wu Tato before, and it shook the air faintly. Boom! When the slash landed on the water of the waterfall left by the crash was split in half directly from the middle. Not only that, the powerful impact also entered the stone of the waterfall, and it has been cut across the inside of the mountain, reaching a depth of hundreds of meters. Yizan's blow was extremely powerful. Wow! When the waterfall was connected again, the waterfall that flowed down turned into two. It turned out that Yizan cut the waterfall into two with one blow. If this matter is to let Yizan do it with chakra, it is very simple, but it is really difficult to use chi. Well, so I'm a genius too. Yizan thought excitedly. After seeing this amazing scene, Wu Tato also stood up excitedly and glanced at Yizan suspiciously. Wu Tato never expected that Yizan had such talent. Wu Tato looked at Yizan with emotion and said, "It seems that you are really a martial arts genius. You have already mastered the use of chi so quickly, and you are stronger than this old man. Isn't it normal that you are stronger than you? You are a funny guy who can't even beat Piccolo, can you compare to this one?" Yizan was extremely contemptuous in his heart. Of course, Yizan didn't have any complacent thoughts on the surface. He looked at Wu Tai humbly and said, "It's better for you to teach." Chapter 47 Back to reality. Yizan humbly looked at Wu Tai and said, "You still teach well. Where is it? You have learned well. You taught me well." In this way, the two of them are complementing each other in an incomparably funny way. The most important thing is that the two complement each other only one sentence. Finally, Immortal Jeline couldn't stand the amusing behavior of the two. "It's so disgusting. Buzz, hum." At this time, a ray of light suddenly lit up in the sky of the whole world, and then gathered and circled, floating straight above Yizan's head, which was extraordinarily beautiful. "Yizan, you're coming back." Immortal Jalin's voice suddenly sounded in Yizan's mind. "Are you leaving?" Yizan glanced around. To be honest, Yizan was a little reluctant to part with this fantasy world. Wu Tato glanced at Yizan lightly and said, "Young man, are you leaving?" "How do you know?" Yizan asked a little strangely. He didn't expect Wu Tato to guess this. Wu Tato looked at Yizan with a pretentious smile. "Your clothes are totally different from ours, you don't belong to our world." "Well, I did come from somewhere else, so I guess we won't meet again." Yizan also smiled slightly, showing a smile. The image is the most important, right?" Wu Tato also looked at Yizan with sigh. Under the watchful eyes of Wu Tato. With a flash of light, Yizan's figure suddenly disappeared from this world, as if it had never appeared. As for Wu Tato, he just looked at the two waterfalls that kept flowing, and fell into contemplation. Until the people from the village came to find Wu Tato and Yizan and asked them to go back to drink, Wu Tato just told the people in the village that Yizan had left and returned to where he should go. Outside. On the Kalen Tower. Yizan opened his eyes slightly, and when he entered, a huge cat head appeared. Boom! Yizan directly clenched his fists and hit the huge cat's head with the hammer. Meow! A cat's scream made Yizan's spirit slowly calm down. Looking at the scene where nothing had changed, and the huge cat's face that was already scarred, Yizan knew that he had come out of the illusion. Yizan looked at Immortal Jalin's injured cat face and rolled his eyes. He must not let Immortal Jaline know that he did it on purpose. "Ah, Immortal Jaline, what's the matter with you?" Yizan looked at Immortal Jaline with a cute expression, absolutely not admitting that he did it on purpose. "No, it's fine." Immortal Jaline looked at Yizan's cute look, not too entangled in this matter. Immortal Jaline walked in a circle beside Yizan and said, "How is it, are you satisfied with this practice?" Yizan nodded, stood up from the ground, and said, "It's all right this time, I wonder how long I've been there." Immortal Jaline tapped the ground with a cane and said, "In the spiritual time cabin, there is no concept of time. You feel that you have been there for a long time, but in fact, only 1 minute has passed. 1 minute. Yizan nodded, and Yizan, who is highly accomplished in demonic illusion, is not incomprehensible about this matter. Immortal Jeline nodded and said, "This is not the time to talk about this. In this world, a demon is about to appear. You are very powerful now, and only you can stop him." Devil. Yizan looked at Immortal Jeline speechlessly. If he said this at this time, it should only be the great demon King Piccolo, who is a combination of gods and demons. Is it finally time to meet a decent opponent? Yizan's fighting spirit was instantly aroused. With his Saiyan blood, he was also eager to fight. Immortal Jeline took out a few immortal beans from behind and gave them to Yizan. "You take this, if you are tired from fighting, just eat one and you can instantly recover to the strongest state." Yizan is naturally very clear about the role of fairy beans. This is a good thing, especially for his face fruit. The physical and spiritual fairy beans consumed by face fruit can be replenished. However, with only a few fairy beans, how could they satisfy Yizan? Yizan narrowed his eyes, looked at Immortal Jeline with the most harmless smile he thought, and said with a smile, "You have grown so many fairy beans here. Just give me a few, won't you be too stingy?" Seeing Yizan's malicious expression, Immortal Jeline felt that his hair was standing on end, and his whole body was tense, and he said quickly, "Shondo is very precious, and a few are enough for you. I'm going to work hard. If there are not enough fairy beans, if something goes wrong in the battle, who will save the world?" Yizan said shamelessly. "Give me face, and give me more." Yizan smiled lightly. Well, Yizan shamelessly activated his own face fruit. "Okay, then I'll give you some more." Immortal Jeline couldn't refuse Yizan's request for some reason, and took out another handful of fairy beans from behind and put it in Yizan's hand. Yizan accepted a handful of immortal beans, and felt a little sad in his heart. He should have said that he should give me all his immortal beans. Yizan left the Tower of Immortal Jeline with a sad face. After being away from Immortal Turtle for so long, I don't know what happened to Buma and Kiki. As for dealing with the great demon King Piccolo, Yizan will naturally not forget it. It is estimated that it will not be long before the great Piccolo, who wants to conquer the world, will come out to destroy it, and it will not be too late to talk about it. Whoosh! Yizan's figure quickly flew into the air, rushing towards the island of Immortal Turtle. Shoo! When Yizan landed on Immortal Turtle's little one, he didn't find a single person. All the people didn't know where to go, and the whole island was empty. Looking at the deserted island, Yizan was a little puzzled. Did everyone go on a trip while he was out? What's gone? Just as he was about to make a phone call to Bulma, Yizan happened to see the old turtle of Turtle Immortal, still lying on the beach. Over quickly, Yizan asked the old turtle, "What about the Turtle Immortal and Bu Machichi, why aren't they here anymore?" The old turtle moved slowly, raised his head and glanced at Yizan, and said, "A big devil has appeared in the east, destroying the city and village, and has already killed a lot of people. The Turtle Fairy and the others rushed to stop it. I am more active than me," Yizan said speechlessly. Chapter 48-Piccolo. The appearance of the great demon King Piccolo is exactly what he wants. What does the legendary Namek star look like? After asking a few words with the old turtle, Yizan didn't stay here any longer. He floated into the sky and flew directly into the distance. After a while, Yizan arrived at the place where everyone said, and Yizan could feel that there was a strong chi coming from there, and there were a few weaker chi that seemed to be fighting. No need to guess, the powerful chi must be the great demon King Piccolo, and the weaker chi should be the Turtle Immortals and the others. This perception of Yizan chakra is also very rare in the world of Dragon Ball. Although the combat power of chi is good, the various methods are not as diverse as chakra. Chi seems to be in pursuit of extremely high combat power. Perception, chi does not perform well in this aspect, otherwise there will be no glasses to check the combat power. Whoosh! Yizan accelerated and hurried forward. Finally, in an uneven desert, Yizan saw the great demon King Piccolo fighting with two people. The green skin, the muscles on the arm, and the two tentacles growing on the forehead, who could this be besides the great Demon King Napak? Big Demon King Piccolo is very powerful and is fighting with Wukong and Tianjin Fan. Every time he makes a move, he seems to be at ease, and he doesn't need to use too much power at all. And next to their battle circle, two corpses fell there, covered by the wind and sand, and there was no breath of life. Although Yizan didn't see who it was, but through perception, he had already noticed that it was a mortal turtle and Keelan, but they both died in the hands of a mortal turtle. Ha, ha, Piccolo raised his right hand, and two strong beams quickly flew out from his fingertips, then rushed towards Wukong and Tianjin Fan. The powerful beam, the two of them could not dodge at all, directly penetrated their shoulders and flew out from the other side. The two of them spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time and flew backwards. Ha ha, weak human beings, fighting with my big demon King Piccolo is simply courting death. Big Piccolo sneered arrogantly. Flying into the void, the right hand of the great demon King Pic condensed a ray of light, a powerful shock wave formed in his hand, and rushed forward quickly, slamming into Wukong and Tianjin Fan. Hey! At the moment when the shock wave flew out, a figure suddenly fell from the sky, and then flew to Wukong and Tianjin Fan's side, carrying one person in each hand, and took them directly away. Boom! Big Demon King Pic's shock wave suddenly fell, hitting the ground, blasting a deep pit, and smoke billowing up. However, when the smoke cleared away, the Demon King Piccolo, who was still a little proud, changed his face in an instant. In that deep pit, there were no corpses of Yu Wukong and Tianjin Fan at all. Except for a pit, there was nothing. No. How could this be, man? Big Demon King Piccolo looked coldly, not far away. I saw that on the ground, Wukong and Tianjin Fan had been rescued, and fell not far from the attack, and it was a young and handsome man who rescued them. This man is none other than Yizan, who rushed over at full speed, but he never imagined that he was still a step late, and Keelan and Turtle Immortal were still dead in the hands of the great Demon King Pic. Wukong and Tianjin Fan were both bruised and scarred from fighting, and they could still see Yizan. Wukong burst into tears with excitement, choked and said, "Brother Yizan, this guy killed Grandpa Turtle and Keelan, you must be to avenge them." Yizan nodded and said slowly, "Don't worry, I will, and I won't let this guy escape from my hands." Tianjin Fan also said with a pale face, "This Demon King is very strong, you have to be careful." Yeah, Yizan agreed, putting Wukong and Tianjin Fan aside, while he slowly floated up and stood opposite the great Demon King Piccolo. Big Demon King Piccolo heard what Yizan said just now. He sneered a few times and said, "You are really arrogant, you actually want me to escape from Big Demon King Piccolo, it's too naive, I want to let you down hell." A hideous smile emerged from the face of the great Demon King Piccolo, with a terrifying aura. Seeing that this is still the old generation of Demon King Piccolo, Yizan said indifferently, "Hurry up and use your most powerful strength, otherwise, maybe you won't have a second chance to make a move." What did you say? Ever since he came out, the great Demon King Piccolo has never met someone like Yizan, and dared to say such a thing to him. Hey! As soon as he raised his hand, several extremely fast rays of light flew out from the fingertips of the great Demon King Piccolo and rushed towards Yizan's body. Facing these beams, Yizan stood floating in the air, not even dodging at all. When the attacks approached him, he just turned his head a few times before dodging them all. Seeing that Yizan had escaped his attack, Big Demon King Pic's face instantly became very ugly, and a few cold sweats fell on his forehead. Glancing at the Big Demon King Pic, Yizan also raised his hand. In his right palm, a wave of light condensed, and the dazzling light burst out quickly, turning into a strong light, and rushing forward quickly. Whoosh! The ray attack flashed past, a streamer streaking in the air, and Hong hit the great Demon King Piccolo. 2.1. Although he had been prepared for a long time, facing Yizan's attack, the great Demon King Pic did not completely dodge when he was dodging. Flip over several times. PFF'd. Big Demon King Pic spat out a mouthful of blood, and with the strength of his entire body, he was able to stand firm in the air and did not let him fall. After being hit by Yizan, Big Demon King Bik's expression became ugly. He stared at Yizan and said coldly, "Damn guy, you dare to hurt me, I must kill you." After the anger, the body of the Great Demon King Bik suddenly changed, and those muscles began to slowly expand, reaching a state full of power. Chapter 49-Kill Bik. After the muscles were full, the Great Demon King Bik rushed forward quickly, flew to Yizan, and launched a melee attack on him. Crack! Big Demon King Bik's attack speed was very fast, and there was also a powerful shock wave between his fists and feet. He threw out a punch, Yizan flashed to the side, and the remaining shock wave blew out. A big pit. Kang! Yizan covered his hands with the energy condensed in his body, and fought against the Great Demon King Piccolo. However, methods such as domineering and chakra are not used. The practice of chi is very strange. Unlike chakra, compared to the practice of chi increases more rapidly during battle. Therefore, Yizan did not use the more powerful chakra and domineering. Shish. The battle between the two was very fast. At high altitudes, only the phantoms of the two could be seen clearly, and the movements of the battle were completely invisible. But even so, Yizan was able to handle it with ease. On the contrary, the Great Demon King Piccolo was sweating more and more, and his body gradually became a little shriveled. The swollen muscles could not hold him for long. Shoo! Suddenly, Yizan grabbed the arm of the Great Demon King Piccolo, and then threw it back with a powerful force, directly throwing the Great Devil Piccolo out. At the same time, Yizan condensed a wave of light, turned it into a slash, and slammed into the Great Demon King Piccolo. Boom! After the light wave rushed out, it exploded on the body of the Great Demon King Piccolo, and rushed him into the ground. When the smoke cleared, the Great Demon King Piccolo was already full of scars. What was especially terrifying was that one of his right arms had been blown off, and blue blood was constantly flowing out. Seeing that the Great Demon King Pic was still able to stand up, Yizan floated in midair and said slightly surprised, "The body is still strong at this time. It is really amazing to be able to survive this blow." The Great Demon King Piccolo was sweating on his forehead and blood dripping from the corners of his mouth. He looked at Jack full of anger. "Guru!" A deep voice flowed in the body of Piccolo's Great Demon King, and some uneven changes appeared on the surface of the body. "Ah!" As the Great Demon King Piccolo shouted, he suddenly rushed forward where his broken arm was, and a fresh right arm actually grew out again. Staring at Yizan, the Great Demon King Bik floated again, flew to Yizan's side, and said coldly, "It seems that I underestimated you. This time, I will definitely want you to die in my hands." "Don't force it, the villain will die of talking too much," Yizan said casually to Piccolo. Big Devil Piccolo removed his cloak with one hand, revealing his sturdy upper body, his hands suddenly raised, and he began to gather powerful strength. Ziz! A huge circular light ball was formed in the hands of the Great Demon King Piccolo, accompanied by subtle lightning, making the light ball full of power. Gia! After this attack was formed, the Great Demon King Bik sneered, waved his hand suddenly, and quickly threw the ball of light in his hand. Hey! The ball of light flew out quickly, like a ray of light, and went straight to Yizan. In an instant, Yizan was enveloped in the ball of light, engulfing Yizan, and the ball of light hit Yizan, producing an extremely powerful explosion. The explosion suddenly came out, forming a hurricane, which swept up the dust on the ground, and a plume of smoke rose behind him. "Ha! This is the end of fighting against me, the Big Devil." After hitting Jack, the Big Devil finally laughed. Under this blow, Yizan could not have a chance to survive. "Brother Yizan!" Wukong also shouted excitedly on the ground. If Yizan was also defeated, there would be no hope. With the wind blowing, the agitated smoke and dust were slowly blown away, and a figure stood in the sand. "It's really rude. I made such a big sandstorm and stained my clothes. This was given to me by Boomer." Yizan's voice came from the sandstorm. As the so-called pretending is always with me like the wind, Yizan is not pretending all the time. "What? This? How is this possible?" Hearing Yizan's voice, Big Demon King Bick was also very cooperative, with a surprised face change. He couldn't help but step back a little. He finally felt fear on Yizan's body. After the wind and sand had completely dissipated, Yizan reappeared in front of the great demon King Piccolo. He was not injured at all, and was still the same as before, except that his clothes were a little dirty and stained with some wind and sand. Before the attack of the great demon King Piccolo arrived, Yizan condensed a protective shield in front of his body to block the powerful light ball. Big Demon King Pick was so shocked that it was difficult to move. It was his most powerful attack just now. He didn't expect to be able to defeat Yizan. Could it be that his power will end here? Yizan condensed a powerful chi in his hands, and formed a shock wave in front of him. The powerful force shook the air around him slightly. You've already pretended to be forced, now it's my turn. Yizan's eyes turned cold, he snorted lowly, and blasted out a powerful shock wave of 340. Whoosh! The shock wave was amazingly powerful, and it quickly passed through the air like a ray of light, rushing towards the great demon King Piccolo. The previous attack had already caused the great demon King Piccolo to lose a lot of strength. At this time, facing Yizan's attack, he couldn't resist it at all. Boom! With the impact of a powerful ray of light falling, that ray of light rushed directly from the chest of the great demon King Piccolo, giving him a chill. Big Demon King Bick looked down. His face was very grim, and he couldn't recover from such a big wound. Before dying, he stared at Yizan and roared, "The root of evil will not be cut off, and I will come back." After he finished speaking, a huge white egg suddenly spit out from the mouth of the great demon King Piccolo, spit it out quickly, flew forward quickly, and disappeared into the sky. Afterwards, the power of the great demon King Bick dissipated in an instant, and he used the last force to explode his body, causing a self-destruction, a powerful explosion, and a rush of sand was generated on the ground around him. Yizan naturally knew that the giant egg that flew out was the next big devil King Piccolo, but Yizan didn't chase it. After all, it wasn't a big deal. Chapter 50_Want me to be a god. The great demon King Pico, who disappeared from everyone's sight, has become a dust, and he can't see anything. Yizan then flew down from the air and landed on the ground. Wukong came over immediately and said excitedly, "Brother Yizan, great, you finally defeated the great demon King Piccolo." But after the excitement, Wukong looked at the corpses of Turtle Immortal and Kaylin with a bit of sadness, and said with an ugly expression, "Unfortunately, the old Grandpa Turtle Immortal and Kaylin died, and the god Long Yi was killed by the great demon King Piccolo." Before Jack came back from the spiritual cabin, the great demon King Piccolo summoned the dragon and killed him. The purpose was to prevent others from collecting the 7 Dragon Balls and resurrect those killed by him. But even so, Yizan was not too surprised, comforted Wukong, and said, "Don't worry, the dragon is dead, but the god who created the dragon is still there. I will go to him later and let him resurrect the dragon." "Well, what god?" Wukong looked at Yizan with some doubts, not quite understanding what he was talking about. Yizan couldn't explain so much to Wukong, so he had to say, "Don't worry, I have a way to save Turtle Immortal and Kaylin anyway." Hearing this, Wukong understood and nodded heavily. Sun Wukong would never doubt what Yizan said. Da. Suddenly, from a high altitude, the sound of helicopters came, and a group of helicopters slowly fell from the sky. Bulma and Kiki rushed out from the front first, and behind her, followed by a group of fully armed soldiers, who got off the plane, ready to attack, and posed around. Seeing Boomer coming, Yizan quickly waved his hand and shouted, "Bulma, we are here." Hearing Yizan calling out to him, Bulma had a happy expression on her face, but then she pouted again and came over and said, "You still remember to come back, didn't you just leave without saying a word?" Looking at Bulma, Yizan smiled and said, "Didn't I come back again? Don't be angry, how about I accompany you later?" "Who wants you to accompany me? I hate it." Bulma snorted, but there was an extra smile on his face, and he no longer felt that way about Yizan. And after Bulma and Yizan said it, Chi-Chi hid in Yizan's arms with a shy Yuhi face, husband. Well, Yizan narrowed his eyes comfortably, enjoying the feeling of Chi-Chi's little bird being close to her. And Bulma hurriedly pulled Wukong and hurriedly asked, "By the way, Wukong, what about the great demon King Piccolo? I brought a reinforcement force to deal with him." Wukong scratched his head and said, "The big devil Piccolo has been eliminated by Big Brother Yizan." Destroyed. Bulma glanced at Yizan suspiciously, then suddenly smiled, and said a little excitedly, "That's great, the whole world is saved." Seeing the excited Boomer, Yizan also leaned over and smiled at Boomer. "Since you're so happy, you have to congratulate your hero, how about a kiss?" In front of so many people, saying such words, Bulma's face couldn't help but raise a touch of Yuhi's dizziness, pushed Yizan, and pouted. "What are you talking about? I'm not that casual." People. It was the first time Yizan saw Bulma's expression. He couldn't help laughing, and then said, "Okay, I'll leave it to you to deal with the aftermath here. I'm going to the heaven to find God, and let him recreate the Dragon Ball to save him. The one who was killed by the great demon King Piccolo." Although everyone didn't know what Yizan was talking about, when he heard that he wanted to save the person killed by the great demon King Piccolo, Bulma didn't stop him. Whoosh! Yizan quickly flew into the distance, causing the soldiers who came with Bulma to be startled, and Bulma had to explain to them that this was the closest thing to their family. The developed aircraft can fly freely as long as it is put on. The God Realm is above the Galen Tower. Yizan flew directly above the Galen Tower, and continued to accelerate upwards. Originally wanting to lead to the God Realm, it was necessary to use Wukong's wishful stick, but for Yizan's strength, whether there is a wishful bar or not, it doesn't matter. Whoosh! As Yizan's body penetrated into the clouds, the shadow of the temple also appeared in front of Yizan's eyes. With an acceleration, Yizan landed steadily on the square of the temple. His aura fell with the movement of his body, swayed around, and spread out. As Yizan fell, there was a sound of footsteps in a dark passage in front of the temple, accompanied by a strong aura. "God, I'm here to find you, come out quickly," Yizan shouted outside. "Has someone finally defeated the great demon King Piccolo?" A low and vicissitudes voice came from the passage. Soon, the god holding a scepter and the servant wrapped in white bandages walked out of the passage. As in the original book, the god of heaven is the real body of the great demon King Piccolo, and the servant still looks like the Indian Asan, and the bandage wrapped around his head makes Yizan fresh in his memory. As soon as Tianshan came out, he looked at Yizan and asked, "Are you the one who defeated the great demon King Piccolo?" Yizan nodded and said, "Well, it was I who defeated the great demon King Piccolo, but the great devil Piccolo killed a lot of people. I hope you can recreate the dragon so that people on Earth can be resurrected." Gods nodded and said, "There is no problem with this. I am also responsible for the mistakes made by the great demon King Piccolo." Of course Yizan knew that the god of heaven and the great demon King Piccolo were originally one, and he released his evil body to become the great devil Piccolo. Later, the gods continued, "But after resurrecting the dragon, I also have one thing, I hope you can agree." "What's the matter?" Yizan asked. Tianshan glanced at the distance and said, "The great demon King Piccolo has not really disappeared, the curse he left behind is still continuing. I am old, and I can't deal with the great Piccolo, so I hope you can inherit mine position and become the new god." Quote. "Want me to be a god?" Yizan was stunned for a moment, a little moved. God, it sounds very pretentious, but the purpose of Yizan's coming to this world is not to pretend, but because he wants to become stronger. Chapter 51 _ The enemy who obeys the breath. Yizan wants to become stronger, and besides the Earth, there are countless high-level planets. Those unimaginable powerhouses are the opponents Yizan really has to face. Shaking his head, Yizan had no choice but to reject the gods. After all, compared to pretending to be forceful, strength is the most important thing. Only pretending to be forceful is called pretending, and pretending to be incompetent is just a fool. Yizan looked at Shendao. "I may not be suitable to be a god. There are more strong people in this universe, and the big devil is nothing. As a Namekian god, of course he knows everything Yizan said. He himself is a figure from an extraterrestrial galaxy, and of course he knows that there are countless strong people. However, in order to protect the earth, the gods still said to Yizan, "But I hope you can protect the earth and don't let it fall into danger." Yizan would agree to this request, even if the gods didn't say it. After all, there are people on earth who are Bulma and he cares about. After getting this reply, Tenjin finally felt relieved, nodded and said, "That's good, now I'll go make Dragon Balls." 783 The ability of the Namekians is really amazing, and they can create such magical things as Dragon Balls. Yizan also specially followed and watched the gods create Dragon Balls. The magical ability like a spell was applied to the 7 Dragon Balls, making them instantly full of power. At the moment when the production was completed, the 7 Dragon Balls flew around. Now we need to collect these 7 Dragon Balls again, and then we can use the dragon's ability again. Tianxian said to Yizan. After all, in this time process, it will take some time for Dragon Ball's abilities to be fully exerted. And after getting this news, Yizan said, "That's good, as long as Dragon Ball is created, the people killed by Piccolo can be resurrected." After not staying here for a long time, Yizan hurriedly returned to Immortal Turtle's hut and told Bulma and Wukong the news. In order to revive Turtle Immortal and Kaylin, Wukong and Tianjin Fan embarked on a journey to find Dragon Balls together, improving their strength by the way. As for Yizan, he stayed on the island and continued to practice. Because after the great demon King Piccolo, a more powerful opponent will appear, and Yizan must improve his strength as soon as possible. At night, Yizan was lying on the rocking chair on the beach, looking at the stars in the sky, and fell into contemplation in his heart. The earth is only a small existence in this star field. Only by rushing out of the earth can he come into contact with powerful opponent. At this time, Chi-Chi, who was wearing a long dress, brought out a plate of fruit, put it in front of Yizan, and said, "Let's eat something." Glancing at Chi-Chi, Yizan's mind immediately became alive. He beckoned to her, and said, "Chi-Chi, there are too many dangers in this world. You are a girl, and you have no ability to protect yourself. It's very dangerous, why don't I teach you some fighting skills?" Chi-Chi glanced at Yizan in surprise and said, "Can I do it too?" Yizan smiled lightly. "Of course, nothing can make it difficult for your husband and me. In this world, there are many things that are unexpected, and there are many ways to practice. I can teach you slowly. The pursuit of strength is something everyone has, not to mention that Chi-Chi doesn't want to be protected all her life, so she nodded and agreed, "Well, then please teach me." Okay. Yizan stood up from his chair, came to Chi-Chi's side, and said to her, "Give me your hand, and I'll teach you some basic fighting skills." Chi-Chi did as Yizan said. The two held hands, and Yizan began to stick to Chi-Chi's body and teach her some basic fighting methods. Of course, in the process of teaching, there will inevitably be some collisions between the bodies of the two. For example, Yizan's hand was accidentally placed on Chi-Chi's butt, and he felt the comfortable softness. There will inevitably be collisions in places. Some training, Chi-Chi's face was already pale. She took a few breaths and said to Yizan, "I can't do it anymore, I'm so tired." But what made her more uncomfortable was that Yizan was by her side, grabbing her hands and feet, making her heart pounding. Seeing that Chi-Chi was tired, Yizan walked over, patted Chi-Chi's back lightly, and said to Chi-Chi, "Cultivation is like this, but this is also the easiest way to increase strength. If you don't believe me, give it a try. Now is it much stronger than before?" Yizan patted a few times, but transferred part of the chakra in his body to Chi-Chi, which instantly enhanced her fighting power. Feeling that her body was full of power, Kiki nodded in surprise. "As expected, I feel that I am much stronger now than before." "Then let's continue." A faint smile appeared on Yizan's mouth. "Yeah." Chi-Chi nodded and continued to practice with Yizan, but the method of practice seemed a little weird, and the two often needed to hug each other. For the next few days, Yizan stayed on Guixian Island, living with Chi-Chi and Bulma, and the relationship between the three also increased a lot. When he was free, Yizan taught Chi-Chi to practice. After each practice, Yizan would give Chi-Chi some chakra to increase his combat power. Later, Buma joined their practice team. When Yizan and the two daughters were spending their days leisurely on a distant planet, in a lush forest, two men in combat uniforms were sitting on a fallen tree trunk, eating food. Huge pineapples, coconuts and other fruits were placed beside them, and several monsters that they had defeated were also taken as lunch by them. These two are none other than Sun Wukong's brother, Raditz, the few remaining Saiyans who survived. The strong man next to him is his subordinate, Didi. While biting at a piece of animal meat, the combat power detector Raditz carried suddenly rang. His brows were slightly wrinkled, and he said solemnly, "In the northern star region of this planet, there is a very powerful force. Combat power." Quote. Chapter 52_Raditz. The burly man beside Raditz took out an instrument, searched for it, then determined the location, and said, "It's a planet called Earth. Do we want to take a look?" Earth. Raditz hesitated for a moment, then said, "Very good, just take me there and see. I hope you will be there, Kakarot." Yizan didn't know Akatsuki when Raditz arrived. Living on the island of Turtle Immortal. On the sea, Yizan was riding a jet ski, carrying Bulma and Kiki, and they were navigating the sea non-stop. Scream. During this period of time, the relationship between Bulma, Chi-Chi and Yizan has also become closer and closer. Yizan is thinking about finding a suitable knight. And at this time. Hey! Suddenly, from the sky, a ray of light crossed, like a comet descending from the sky, rushing to the distance and falling. What a powerful breath! Yizan frowned slightly, and looked in the direction of the light. The breath just now was something he had never felt on Earth. It was very powerful, almost unprecedented. Seeing Yizan's expression so surprised, Bulma sat next to him and couldn't help asking, "What's the matter, what happened?" In order not to disappoint the second daughter, Yizan shook his head and said, "It's nothing, let's continue." Hum. After increasing the throttle horsepower, Yizan drove a jet ski and swept through a layer of water waves on the sea, and the three of them rushed into the distance happily. At this time, on a wasteland ground, a huge ball fell there, and the ground was smashed and sunk down more than 10 meters, forming a deep pit. With a muffled sound, the huge ball was suddenly opened, and a man with a strange hairstyle came out. This person is none other than Raditz. As soon as he came out, he took a breath of air, then frowned and said with some disgust, "It's really a planet with extremely bad air." Just after coming out of the deep pit, Raditz had a combat power detector on his eyes, and saw that there was a strong combat power not far away. "The combat power is close to 1000. Raditz said with a slight smile on his face, "Such a powerful combat power seems to be the strongest on this planet." And he was about to leave. Behind him, a farmer, holding a gun, looked at Raditz very nervously. When he turned around, Raditz looked at the farmer, and the detector he was carrying showed the farmer's combat power, and he said disdainfully, "The scum with only a combat power of 5. Quote. The farmer was so frightened by Raditz's appearance that he couldn't help pulling the class, and a bullet flew out. However, the bullet just flew in front of Raditz, and with a flick of his finger, the bullet flew away and landed beside him. Afterwards, Raditz raised his hand, and a ray of light burst out from his hand. He flew into the sky, and an explosion occurred where the farmer was. Following the indicated direction, Raditz quickly flew to the immortal island of Guixian where Yizan was, and landed on the beach as soon as he landed. At this time, the group of boomers who were resting in the room were watching TV while eating fruit. Yizan suddenly stood up, frowned, and said solemnly, "Is it finally here?" Without explaining everything to Buma and the others, Yizan said to them, "You guys wait here, I'll go out." After finishing speaking, Yizan walked out of the Turtle Immortal's hut. As soon as he came out, he saw Raditz on the beach. He jumped up, flew over, and landed opposite Raditz. It turned out not to be Kakarot. Raditz was stunned for a moment after seeing Yizan, but then said in surprise, but I didn't expect that you are not Kakarot, but you have Saiyan blood on your body. Quote. After the change of the face fruit, Yizan has acquired the blood of the Saiyans, which is why Raditz can feel the aura of the Saiyans on Yizan's body as soon as he appears. Yizan also glanced at Raditz lightly and said, "What if you have Saiyan blood, Raditz?" Raditz was a little surprised that Yizan could call out his name, but he could only infer that Yizan might know his name because he was a Saiyan. With a slightly raised corner of his mouth, Raditz said, "Very well, since you know my identity, from today onwards, you can be my servant and join me in conquering other planets." "Want me to be your servant?" Yi Xuanfang heard the funniest joke and laughed loudly. "Rades, it's almost as if you were a servant for me, you think too highly of yourself." "Bastard, you don't know how to praise." Raditz shouted in anger, "If that's the case, then you should die." After finishing speaking, Raditz raised his right hand, and a powerful shock wave was condensed, and it would attack Yizan at any time. Pulling his eyes behind him, Yizan noticed that if there was a fight with Raditz here, the immortal turtle's hut could not be avoided at all. Yizan jumped up, flew high into the sky, and said to Raditz, "Don't you want to fight me? Then come and find an open place." Realizing that Yizan's combat power was not even 1,000, Raditz naturally would not be afraid of Yizan. His combat power was a powerhouse with 1,500. "Okay, then I'll let you understand." Raditz agreed, and followed Yizan's back and flew into the distance. What Raditz didn't know was that the combat power he saw was only the chi emanating from Yizan's surface, while the chakra and domineering in his body could not be seen through the detector. And Yizan's most powerful is precisely the additional states such as chakra and domineering that cannot be detected. Yizan's 6 paths state, immortal state, the 8 inner gates and even domineering and other states are not attached, so it seems that the combat effectiveness is not high. However, Yizan himself does not want to use these things to fight, because it will restrict the development of Qi, and Qi is a force that Yizan must control and develop. Chapter 53_Fierce Battle. With a low voice, Raditz stepped on the ground with his right foot, and the whole person was like a strong light, chasing him directly and quickly, and instantly shortened the distance from Yizan. After all, he is a strong Saiyan, and he is also Wukong's older brother. He has a victorious and ruthless heart. Naturally, as soon as he appears, he shows his powerful strength, and he does not want to fall behind Yizan at all. After chasing in front of Yizan in one breath, Raditz didn't forget to look back at Yizan and sneered, "There is only so much fighting power on the earth, your speed is really slow." Yizan ignored Raditz. In terms of Qi cultivation, he was indeed inferior to Raditz. However, compared to speed, Raditz is definitely not comparable to space-time ninjutsu. However, even so, Yizan could still keep up with Raditz. Damn it! When Raditz found that it was difficult for him to get rid of Yizan, he realized that he seemed to underestimate Yizan, but as a Saiyan, he immediately exhausted all his strength and wanted to get rid of Yizan. Mysterious. After a while, Yizan and Raditz, who tried their best to fly, soon came to a desert. They had already flown thousands of kilometers ahead, and they had already left the place with the city. Landing on the top of a very high desert mountain, Yizan's eyes were full of passionate fighting intent. This may be the first time he has fought a high-level battle since he came to this world. Shish! Raditz had already landed on the opposite side of Yizan, and the two were separated by a hill, but the time difference was only less than a second. Phew! And when the two of them fell, 2 strong energies passed under their feet, causing a gust of wind and sand. The strong man is fighting, and before he makes a move, the aura of the sky has already begun to permeate all around. If someone is here, it is estimated that they will be hit by this aura long ago, and I don't know where they flew. After all, the speed has been raised to the limit. Looking at Yizan across from him, Raditz spoke first. He smiled coldly and said, "You're such a ridiculous guy, with Saiyan blood, but hiding in this small place, what's the use of living?" As he said that, a powerful breath burst out from Raditz's body, stirring up the surrounding mad sand, looking like it was about to collapse at any time. And Yi-zan looked at Raditz very calmly, and said, "What if you are a Saiyan? Didn't someone destroy the entire planet and become one of the survivors of the disaster? What else do you deserve? Proud. Damn guy, I'll make you pay." The enraged Raditz let out a low voice. His body instantly flew up, and he rushed into the air. His right hand lay down into a claw, and a beam of light gathered, facing Yi-zan's. The body dropped. Hey! The attack of this ray of light was very powerful, and it fell in an instant, and the air was shaken by tremors. Yi-zan retreated back with all his strength, and did not confront the attack, but avoided the past and let him hit the ground, causing an explosion of machine guns. As soon as he missed a hit, Raditz immediately waved more light attacks with both hands, shrouding everything around him, as if there was a violent storm. Yi-zan also knew that he couldn't dodge anymore, so he condensed a protective shield in front of him and rushed forward. The powerful force touched everything with those attacks. Boom! There was a gust of wind all around. Yi-zan broke free from those attacks and flew to Raditz. "What? You avoided my attack?" Raditz could hardly believe the situation in front of him. Yi-zan was able to block his attack, and his combat power was obviously much stronger than the opponent. Before Raditz could react, Yi-zan flew in front of him, kicked his right foot quickly, and his sharp toe kicked Raditz's chin with a ray of light. PFF'd. Raditz, who was kicked, spat out a mouthful of blood from the corner of his mouth, and his body flew backwards. After flying back a few hundred meters, Raditz quickly used his strength to stop, not letting himself fly too far, but the expression on his face became more and more hideous. He has traversed so many planets, and no one has ever hurt him like this, and he is still on a planet with low-level combat power like Earth. For a proud warrior like him, it is simply a great insult. "Bastard, I want your life!" Raditz roared. His body flew forward quickly, the combat power in the body soared, and in a short period of time, it soared to 1600 points, which simply broke through his own limit. Shish! Shish! Raditz rushed in front of Yi-zan, kicked out a few feet quickly, and the attack fell like light and shadow. This time, Raditz chose to fight Yi-zan in close quarters instead of long-range combat, and the rapid attack made Yi-zan have to fight quickly. Bang! Bang! With the dull sound, the battle between the two became more and more intense in the sky, and they couldn't see their silhouettes at all. Only the sound of battle sounded all around. With a muffled sound, Yi-zan was punched in the right shoulder by Raditz, and the whole person fell back and hit the ground, causing a great shock. A huge deep pit burst open immediately. Yi-zan fell to the ground, and all within a radius of 2.8 meters were sunk to the ground. At the same time, Raditz's hands condensed a strong light, huge energy surged in his palms, and then slammed to the ground. Hey! A ray of light attacked quickly, smashing into the deep pit where Yi-zan was, with loud noises, as if a giant bomb exploded, and the mushroom cloud rose. After this blow, Raditz's expression became very ugly. He had indeed consumed a lot of energy just now, and his body was a little tired. As soon as he wiped his scarred face, Raditz looked at the smoke and sneered. "I said long ago that fighting with me will make you regret it, Really, but your strength is not enough." Chapter 54 beat up Raditz. "Really, but your strength is not enough." Suddenly, Yi-zan's voice rang from behind Raditz. It was so calm, without a trace of emotion at all. Hearing Yi-zan's voice, Raditz twitched his eyes in disbelief, turned his head slowly, and looked behind him. I saw that behind Raditz, Yi-zan was unscathed, standing high in the air against the wind. Not only did the momentum on his body not weaken, but he climbed a lot. How is this possible? Under such a powerful attack from me, you are not dead yet." Raditz was shocked that Yi-zan was still alive. With an indifferent smile, Yi-zan's aura suddenly rose, and he shouted, "Let you see my true strength, arrogant guy." Hoo-hoo! A few gusts of wind came, and beside Yi-zan, it blew Yi-zan's clothes, and a powerful force burst out from Yi-zan's body instantly. Dee-dee! The combat power detector Raditz was wearing in front of his eyes also sounded. Yizan's combat power climbed to 1800 points in an instant, even higher than his. How is it possible to hide his true combat power? Seeing Yizan's sudden rise in combat power, Raditz's face turned pale in an instant. This was the first time for him. Combat power. However, Raditz never imagined that this was not Yizan's hidden combat power, but Yizan's increased combat power during the battle. Getting stronger, the battle bloodline of the Super Saiyan was brought into full play by Yizan. Hey! Without too much nonsense, Yizan rushed forward, leaving a few phantoms in the air, and immediately came to the sky above Raditz, kicked him condescendingly, and a powerful force erupted. Bang! Raditz didn't even have a chance to dodge, so he was kicked and flew downwards and fell to the ground, creating a big hole. Hey! Raditz, who was unwilling to admit defeat, flew up from the deep pit and launched a counterattack against Yizan, but Yizan's powerful attacking moves caused him to vomit blood again and again. Several powerful shock waves erupted from Yizan's hands, flew to Raditz's lower abdomen, and penetrated directly, causing him to vomit blood. Damn! Covering his wound, Raditz flew into the sky, condensing a powerful shock wave, ready to attack Yizan. A powerful force surged from Raditz's hand, and the surrounding air became illusory and trembling, and the white roses began to emit dazzling rays of light. Yizan did not show weakness. At this moment, the void flew up, almost keeping a parallel line with Raditz. A powerful force also quickly condensed from his hand, and the light waves and power shone brightly at the same time. Ziz! The power became stronger and stronger. Yizan shouted according to the attack method of the Turtle Qigong, the Turtle Qigong wave. As the last word fell, Yizan's attack flew out almost at the same time as Raditz's attack, met in midair, and there was a loud rumbling sound all around. Boom! In the sky, two powerful attacks, like Jinchuriki column formed by light, quickly collided together, producing an extremely violent vibration. Neither of the two forces was willing to give in. At the moment when they met, it seemed to pause for a few seconds. Then, Yizan released the chakra ability in his body, and a huge force and chi blasted out. Hey! Raditz could no longer resist Yizan's attack, and was directly bombarded and flew out. From a distance, it seemed as if the light had been knocked away and flew thousands of meters away. Boom! With a loud noise, Raditz landed in the desert, producing an extremely violent explosion that blew the surrounding thousands of meters into a deep pit, and he himself was also in the center of the explosion. Soon, the smoke and dust from the explosion dissipated, and Yizan quickly fell from the air and flew to Raditz's side. At this time, Raditz didn't have the arrogant look before. After being shot down by Yizan, the battle armor on his body was also broken, and his body was covered with scars, and it became very difficult to breathe. How can you be so powerful? You hide your combat power. Looking at Raditz, who was still alive, Yizan shook his head and said, No, it's not that I hide my combat power, it's that I'm fighting, constantly getting stronger. This is the real Super Saiyan. The power of the bloodline can become stronger every moment in battle at a speed visible to the naked eye. Cough cough. Raditz coughed violently, spit out a mouthful of blood, stared at Yizan and said in shock, Impossible, how can Saiyan bloodline be so strong? I don't believe it. Saiyan blood, I know best. Raditz shouted, his eyes flashed with disbelief, and his body began to swell violently. A strange pattern appeared in those eyes, and he didn't know what he was staring at. Yizan squinted his eyes, thinking in his heart, is this about to start transforming into a gorilla? Yizan can remember that in the final battle of Raditz, he transformed into a huge gorilla warrior. Sure enough. Puff, puff, the violent beating of Raditz's heart could almost be seen from the outside. The position of his chest was constantly rising and falling, which looked very strange. But just beating like this, Raditz's body swelled hundreds of times in just an instant, and just like Goku, he became a huge orangutan. The body grew hair, the head became hideous, and Raditz had completely changed, becoming a huge orangutan 003. After becoming an orangutan, Raditz's injuries were nothing to him at all. Facing the small Yizan in front of him, he frantically beat his chest a few times, making loud noises. Did you see it? Transformation. This is where Super Saiyan is really powerful. This is the bloodline of Saiyan. Raditz shouted. Roar. With just a casual roar, a gust of sand was blown wild, and a huge deep pit was formed. There is a huge gap between the two of them just in terms of body size. No matter where you look, Yizan looks like he would be swallowed by Raditz. Roar. With a roar, Raditz raised his right fist and slammed it down, attacking Yizan fiercely. The power in front of the fist became very fierce, and it also brought out a gust of wind. Hey! Before his fist fell, Yizan retreated back continuously, flew dozens of meters back, and then rose into the air. Boom! With the punch, the ground erupted violently, with a layer of shock waves, rushing directly from the ground to the distance, with a face hundreds of meters, making the desert and the earth, fell down. One blow did not hit Yizan, and Raditz, who turned into a giant orangutan, beat his chest frantically and let out a roar, causing the ground to vibrate violently. Chapter 55_cut. At this time, an aircraft patrolling in the distance happened to hear the movement here, and hurried over to check what was going on. However, when the two drivers saw the scene in front of them, their eyes twitched, and their mouths twitched in fright. A giant orangutan worthy of a skyscraper was right in front of them, going mad without mentioning it. Before they could report to the headquarters, Raditz discovered their whereabouts and threw a punch in the direction of the plane. The pilot who flew the plane was stunned for a long time, and everything was forgotten. He just twitched his expression and almost fainted. Just when the huge fist was about to hit the plane, Yizan flew over quickly, grabbed the tail of the plane with one hand, and pulled him directly to the back. Ah! The two pilots in the cabin had long been frightened to death by this scene. Unexpectedly, the plane flew back automatically, and the two almost fainted. Whoosh! When they found out that the giant orangutan's shot was in vain, the two people slowly exhaled at the same time and escaped from the gate of hell. Yizan, who flew to the cabin from the back, said to the two, "Leave here quickly and pretend nothing happened." When the two pilots saw Yizan, their faces became even more ugly. They had never seen anyone who could fly in the sky. However, before they could respond, Yizan pushed their cabin forward, and the plane involuntarily took the two pilots and flew into the distance. Looking at Raditz, who was transformed into a giant ape, Yizan was not afraid, but showed a sneer and said, "Do you think you can hit me by becoming a big man?" The body condensed a huge chi, and Yizan's right arm became sparkling, and the powerful airflow gathered in the sky above the palm of his hand, floating continuously, forming a powerful light. Whoosh! Without the slightest hesitation, Yizan used his attack to the fastest speed, hitting Raditz with rays of light one after another. Boom! With the loud noise, even Raditz, who had the body of a giant orangutan, couldn't bear the rain of Yizan's attacks, and he was beaten and retreated, and he kept roaring. Roar! In Raditz's mouth, a wave of light formed, and a powerful shock wave flew out quickly, rushing towards Yizan. With a quick flash to the side, the impacted light flew to the sky and exploded directly in the sky. All the power rushed into the atmosphere and was consumed. Taking a long breath, Yizan frowned slightly, looking at Raditz, who was still in a frenzy, and snorted coldly, "If we continue, there will be problems in the mainland, and we must resolve it quickly." Is it? But the chi hasn't increased too much. Yizan was entangled. Once the chi started to fight, the speed of growth really made Yizan feel unbelievable. That speed was many times faster than the training speed. However, the movement of the two of them fighting was real. Some are bigger. Yizan thought. The whole body was filled with chakra. A powerful chakra solidified rapidly, enveloped Yizan, and put on an armor formed of chakra Susanoo on Yizan's body. A huge figure condensed by the real chakra formed in the sky above Yizan, a demon warrior in armor, with a long knife on his back, with a monstrous aura, pressing directly on Raditz's body. Cut! Yizan shouted without hesitation, and slashed down with his knife. Boom! In the dry desert, there was a thunderclap from the sky, which was extremely harsh. Even Raditz, who was transformed into a giant ape, saw a gleam of fear in his huge eyes when he saw Susano's voice. That's not a power that mortals have at all. Raditz still doesn't have much knowledge. If the big boss after Dragon Ball came over, Yizan's Susano is really not enough to watch. However, at this stage, Yizan's Susano still has great dominance. Boom! Finally, Yizan's slash fell quickly, slashed directly on Raditz's body, and slashed directly from the top of his head. The endless brilliance was released incisively and vividly at this moment. The powerful shock wave directly broke Raditz's body, split it into two from head to toe, and then melted into the light of the shock wave. Until the last moment, Raditz didn't even have time to let out a final roar, and disappeared from this world forever, never to appear again. When the gust of wind struck again, in this desert, apart from the traces of battles, there was no sign of Raditz, not even a trace of ashes. And Yizan, who was in the air, also spit out a few rough breaths. In order to deal with Raditz, Yizan also consumed a lot of power this time. However, the bloodline of the Super Saiyan is completely beyond his imagination. A Super Saiyan's talent for combat is truly unparalleled. This time it's just Raditz, who is not very strong. He is not ranked among the many powerhouses in the universe. Vegeta, Frieza, and Sharu are more powerful than this one. Many, and these guys haven't appeared yet. I'm afraid it won't be so easy to deal with by then. It seems that I need to increase my strength as soon as possible. Yizan frowned slightly. Yizan needed a qualitative leap to increase his strength. I am afraid that the only one who can help him is the gods. At least he is a Namekian, and he has connections with the kings of the world and the king of Yama. As long as he helps himself, cultivation is not a problem. Although his bloodline is somewhat similar to that of Super Saiyan, it is still different. After all, he has absorbed the advantages of Super Saiyan's cells with face fruit. Therefore, it is estimated that the transformation of Super Saiyan will not be enough. Take a long-term view. Chapter 56_Go to the King. Yizan had just defeated Raditz. The Earth should be able to be at peace for a period of time. Just taking advantage of this time is the best opportunity for Yizan to improve his strength. Just do it. Yizan has never been a procrastinator. Well, it really is. I saw that Yizan didn't hesitate at all, and flew straight to the back, first to the island of Immortal Turtle. Yi Xuanmei's name is that. In order to be able to practice with peace of mind, at least you have to appease Bulma and Chi-Chi first, and don't let them worry about themselves. When he returned to the Immortal Island, it was already night, and Yizan spent an afternoon to defeat Raditz. What he didn't know was that shortly after he came back, the two pilots he rescued on the way had taken their commander and a group of soldiers to the place where they were fighting, but they found nothing. Seeing Yizan's return, Bulma and Chi-Chi were very happy. The three of them had dinner together, and Yizan taught them to practice for a while. It was not until the next day that Yizan told 663 them that he would go out to practice for a while, because the future Earth would be very dangerous and he needed to strengthen his strength. For this reason, Bulma and Chi-Chi couldn't refuse. They could only tell Yizan to come back as soon as possible. Invisibly, they had already developed a kind of dependence on Yizan. Soon, Yizan flew to the temple where the gods lived. After Yizan, who had strengthened his strength, arrived at the temple after a while. Just as Yizan came to the temple, the gods appeared beside Yizan and said, I already know about your victory over the Saiyans. You did a good job, and I thank you on behalf of the people of the earth. For this kind of gratitude, Yizan just waved his hand and said forcefully, I'm not just here to save the earth, but more importantly, I want to protect the people I like. After speaking, Yizan also glanced at the distant sky and said, beyond the temple, there are more galaxies, there are many strong people, I must improve my strength, only in this way can I deal with more powerful characters. Quote. Regarding Yizan's words that he didn't pretend to be the most forceful, only to be more forceful, the gods nodded undeniably and said, I have also predicted that the future Earth will be very dangerous, and a super soldier will be needed to protect the Earth at that time. I think there is no one more suitable than you. The Namekians have special and powerful abilities, and divination is one of them, and the gods also inherited this ability, giving them the feeling of being a prophet. Then, where do you think I should go to cultivate best? Yizan said. With his current strength, it is unlikely that he wants to reach the Realm King, and he will need the help of the gods and the King of Yama. The gods have long felt that Yizan's strength is stronger than himself, so he nodded and said, with your current strength, you won't be able to cultivate with us at all, so I will give you a gift. Go to a place more suitable for your cultivation. Quote. Where? Yizan asked lightly. Jia Wang, Tian Shen replied with a trace of respect in his eyes. After all, he is only the celestial god of this planet, and the real king is the master of the world. Although Yizan had guessed it for a long time, he was still very excited on the surface. As long as his strength improved, he would be able to fight Frieza and the others. The powerhouses in the universe, Yizan vowed to stand at the top. Soon, after talking with the gods, Yizan was taken to King Yama and met with him. Yizan couldn't help being a little surprised when he saw King Yama's feelings. This guy was really big. He was interviewing a huge fat man just like in the original book. Just sitting there would give people a lot of pressure. When he came to King Yama, Yizan originally wanted to see Kaylin and Turtle Immortal, but when he thought that he was running out of time, he gave up the idea. Anyway, it wouldn't be long before Wukong would help them resurrect. After relying on the passage of the King of Hell, the gods could not continue to send Yizan forward, and on the winding path, the two said goodbye. If you want to reach the place where the real king is, you have to go through this endless path. Yizan glanced at it. He still has some impressions. At the end of this path floating in the air, there is a graceful figure. Snakeheim Beauty. Thinking of this, Yizan's heart was a little excited. He finally came here, but he couldn't run for nothing. Soon, Yizan speeded up and ran on this trail. Due to the restrictions of Hell, Yizan could not use the levitation technique here. However, after running for a while, Yizan discovered that his chakra could be used here, and soon his speed increased a lot. But Yizan didn't know how long it would take to reach the Realm King before he reached this distant goal. In Hell, the concept of time was long gone, and Yizan didn't know how long he had run, but when he saw the end of this path, his excitement couldn't be added. I'm going, it's finally here. After seeing the end, Yizan hurriedly rushed forward. As soon as he landed on the ground, Yizan saw a palace from a distance, surrounded by clouds and mist. A huge house number stood there, and there was a huge flower snake next to it, but this snake was carved. Taking a deep breath, Yizan raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and said with a smile in his heart, "Beauty, I'm here." Walking directly into the palace, Yizan felt that a fragrant wind came from behind him, making him unable to help turning around, only to see slowly walking out from behind the veil and thin tent. A stunning beauty with a curvaceous figure. The fair skin is like a freshly peeled egg, which can be broken by blowing, and the long legs are completely exposed in the air, and the slender waist is like an attractive light, which makes people look at it past. Inside the gorgeous long skirt, there was a huge evil body wrapped in it. After Yizan looked at it, he didn't want to move away. There is also that beautiful face, not the usual enchanting and beautiful, light eyeliner, with those eyes that seem to be able to speak. Chapter 57_Beauty on the Snake Road. As soon as he saw this stunning beauty, Yizan's expression became stunned, and he refused to leave the woman's body at a glance. Bulma and Kiki have completely different tastes compared to this woman. This kind of woman will make people think about it as soon as they come out. When they see this woman, their first impression is, the bed. After that, there are all kinds of shameful things. And Kiki and Bulma make people want to get close and love them. Hee, are you looking stupid, handsome guy? As soon as Snakeheim appeared, he couldn't help covering his mouth and chuckling when he saw Yizan being so dumb. It's okay if she doesn't laugh, but when she laughs, she becomes even more beautiful, making Yizan's heart skip a beat, and she can't help but say, "How charming." The sound was not loud, but it also made Snakeheim hear clearly. Although she has a very high status here, she has lived in the Deep Palace for a long time and has never seen a man. Now that Yizan praised her, she looked a little yuhi on her face. Moistened. "You really know how to talk. No one has come to me for hundreds of years. Since you are here, I will treat you well." Snakeheim smiled lightly and walked over to guide Yizan. "How are you going to entertain me?" Yizan couldn't help showing a wicked smile on his face. With a pair of eyes, he stared at the Snakeheim's body without hesitation, and his heart was full of enthusiasm. Of course, such scorching eyes could not escape the eyes of the Snakeheim, and her heart was also undulating, pulling Yizan and walking into the palace. Tilda came to a place to eat. Snakeheim asked Yizan to sit down, and when he left his side, his fingertips did not forget to stroke Yizan's heart, and said with a faint smile, "You are really strong. Ah, you must be exhausted coming here from the King of Hell, let's eat something to replenish." Quote. Saying that, Snakeheim clapped his palm, and filed into a group of maids from the outside and inside, bringing a table of delicious food to Yizan. After coming to Dragon Ball World, Yizan also became like Wukong and the others. He had a special feeling for delicious food. After swallowing his saliva, he quickly swirled the clouds and swallowed all the delicious food into himself. Stomach. But the Snakeheim kept staring at Yizan in front of him, watching him eat with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, and sometimes he would eat a little and accompany Yizan. After eating, Yizan patted his stomach, burped, let out a sigh of relief, and lay lazily on the chair. "It's really comfortable, I haven't eaten so full for a long time." After resting for a while, Yizan went to take a bath. This is the palace. The bathing place is a large bath with warm izumi in it, which makes it very comfortable to wash. Under the hazy moonlight, Yizan took off his clothes, revealing his well-covered muscles. The already majestic brother shook his body slightly, and then Yizan slowly descended into the pool. The warmth from the pool made Yizan forget his exhaustion. This feeling was like putting him in heaven. Those tired feelings disappeared at this moment. Crash! With a sound, the door was slowly pushed open. A figure wrapped in a white bath towel with snow-white legs came in slowly from the outside. Yizan was facing the door. The person who walked in, Yizan saw clearly, it was the Snakeheim. She took off the robe, and at this time, her hair was hanging down slightly, showing that vixen-like attitude, which was even more attractive. The fierce man wrapped in the bath towel was more exposed. Just by letting Yizan see it, he felt that his blood was a little swollen. The water in the pool was not hot enough, so he got hot first. What are you doing here?" Yizan asked, pretending to be surprised, resisting the urge in his heart. Snakeheim waved his long hair and smiled at Yizan. "I'll take a bath with you." These words are like a pot of boiling water, directly scalding Yizan's heart. The whole person suddenly became excited. This is really an affair. He is not the boy of Sun Wukong. Emotional idiot, beauty is in front, it should be go up. Saying that, Snakeheim untied the rope on the bathrobe directly, and the white bathrobe all fell off and fell under her legs, showing herself in front of Yizan without reservation. Hiss! Yizan couldn't help taking a deep breath, and his heart was almost soaring with excitement. This was the first time he saw a woman's body since he came to Dragon Ball World. Pushing away the spray, the Snakeheim slowly sank into the water, and swam to Yizan's side little by little, and soon the two were facing each other in a vacuum. Seeing Yizan's hardcover body, the Snakeheim seemed to have a strange look in his eyes. He picked up a white towel next to him and said to Yizan, "Let me wipe your back." Okay. Yizan nodded, turned around slowly, and left a back for Snakeheim. However, after only wiping it twice, Yizan couldn't bear it anymore. The brother under him was already hungry and thirsty. He had not seen a woman for a long time, and Yizan's heart was burning. "Grandma, what else do you need to wipe your back? Just let me wipe you." Yizan bit Kiba, no longer hesitated, turned around and hugged the Snakeheim. With their bodies facing each other, Yizan pounced on Snakeheim, took a deep breath, and said to Snakeheim, "You are so beautiful, so beautiful." Snakeheim seemed to be ready, showing a faint smile, kissed Yizan's forehead, and said, "I'm very lonely, I've been here for hundreds of years, and no one will accompany me to tell the truth. I know I can't keep you, but stay with me tonight, okay?" "Okay." Yizan agreed without hesitation, but then said, "No, I want you to be my woman and take you out of here." A flash of surprise flashed in Snakeheim's eyes. Which woman does not feel for the man she likes? Yizan is the man she fell in love with the first time she saw it. But the surprise was a surprise. Snakeheim then returned to reality, and said with some disappointment, "But I can't leave here, this is my mission, I want to stay in this place forever." At this time, Yizan hugged the Snakeheim tightly, and said very domineeringly, "I don't care what mission, whoever is strong enough is qualified to speak, and I will definitely take you away." Chapter 58 Commitment to Snakeheim. The beauty is as fragrant as jade. Yizan hugged the Snakeheim, and could no longer bear his own bathing fire. After saying some love words, he gently occupied the body of the Snakeheim. "Ah!" With a soft cry, Snakeheim hugged Yizan's body tightly, grabbed his hands on his back, and drew a few marks with his fingertips. The pain brought by the first time changed the expression of Snakeheim slightly, and a bright yui-colored flower bloomed in the warm Izumi pool. Having not experienced a woman for a long time, Yizan was extremely crazy this time. After having fun in the water, the two rolled onto the bunk again, fighting and fighting. Fortunately, Snakeheim is not weak, so strong and long-term hand-to-hand combat can persist, but in the end, Snakeheim was defeated and lay softly in Yizan's arms. Touching Snakeheim's perfect body, Yizan couldn't help but kissed her ear and said softly, "Snakeheim, follow me later." Snakeheim glanced at Yizan with some bewildered eyes. A pair of thin white lotus arms wrapped around Yizan's neck. His body was close to Yizan, and he said softly, "I also want to, but I can't go, it's just a ghost. I'll make you a body." "Really? If it's true, all." With the beauty in her arms, Yizan can't stand the provocation teasing of the Snakeheim, once again regained his vigor, and had a fish and water love with the Snakeheim, the taste of which is naturally wonderful. In this endless world, there is no concept of time, and it is impossible to distinguish between day and night. Yizan only knows that he has slept for a long time. When he woke up again, the Snakeheim had already dressed and sat on the edge of the shop looking at him, with a pair of autumn waves like water, and his eyes were full of love. "You're awake." Snakeheim gently helped Yizan pull up the bedding. Yizan nodded, stood up, put on his clothes, stood beside Snakeheim, stretched his waist, and said, "This is really a good place. Eat and sleep and eat, and with beautiful women, I'm really reluctant to leave here." "Then don't leave, okay?" Snakeheim smiled slightly, stood up, and hugged Yizan's arm. Yizan was stunned for a moment. He could feel the sincerity of the Snakeheim, but he didn't come to the Dragon Ball world specifically to pick up girls. Although this is also one of Yizan's goals, Yizan still has what he wants to do most. Turning around, Yizan raised his palm, touched the beautiful face of the Snakeheim a little, and said, "Wait for me, when I stand at the peak of this universe, you and I will be happy together." Quote. Cut. Snakeheim suddenly smiled, pushed Yizan's hand away, and said with a smile, "I'm joking with you, you and I are not from the same world, it's impossible to be together, you still pursue your self-dream." Quote. Saying that, Snakeheim went outside. When he was about to reach the door, Snakeheim turned his head and said, "By the way, the food is ready, come out and eat." "Yeah." Yizan nodded, sorted out his mood, walked out of the room, and went to the palace hall outside with Snakeheim, sitting in front of the long round table, ready to enjoy the food. After the meal, Yizan was very full again, rubbed his stomach, sat there admiring the Snakeheim. Such a beauty, how could Yizan not be moved? Thinking of the love of fish and water last night, Yizan was very excited. Of course, maybe it wasn't last night, but what's the point? "You are so beautiful." Yizan leaned forward and sat down beside Snakeheim, wanting to touch Snakeheim's hand. Unexpectedly, Snakeheim stood up by himself and said to Yizan, "I'm sorry, Mr. Yi, your stay here has come. If you don't leave, you will be killed." Why is it like this?" Yizan asked with some doubts. "It was like glue last night, how come it has become cold today?" Snakeheim flicked his long sleeves, turned and walked outside the palace, without even turning his head back, making Yizan puzzled, but then he wanted to understand that maybe it was what he said that offended her. As the saying goes, a woman's heart is a needle in the bottom of the sea. He can't force her to do anything right now, so he has to sigh slightly, and when he is strong enough, he will come back to her. Behind Yizan, Snakeheim watched Yizan's departure affectionately. "Don't forget me, I hope you remember your promise and come pick me up at the last moment." Everything before was deliberately done by Snakeheim in order to make Yizan leave him better. Yizan packed up his mood, walked out of the palace, and flew to a farther place. According to the position given by the gods, Yizan quickly found the Northern Realm King, a small planet with a small area and only one room. And a circular avenue, the rest of the place is just a piece of grass. Seeing this planet, Yizan was secretly amazed. The stars in this universe are really strange. I didn't expect such a small planet to exist. Whoosh! Without thinking too much, Yizan jumped and flew towards the small planet of the Realm King. Who knows, just as Yizan approached Zhuang a little, he immediately felt the incomparable suction force on it. Although he had already prepared, he didn't expect the gravity to be so amazing that he instantly fell on the planet. Slammed into a wall, and past the wall directly. Ouch! Suddenly, a scream came from behind the collapsed wall. A fat man with short horns on his head and a certain black round hat was smashed under the 3.7 bricks, and his eyes were still open. He kept turning in circles, and there was a crushed chair next to him. It looked like he was taking a nap, but he accidentally bumped into Yizan, who fell from the sky. Yizan, who fell into a daze, also supported his body and slowly struggled from the ground, but his movements to get up were very slow. "Damn it, I really didn't expect that the gravitational force here is so strong." Yizan bit Kiba secretly and got up from the ground with difficulty. The powerful pressure and gravity almost knocked Yizan to the ground again when he stood up, which was far more powerful than the gravity room that Bumma's father gave him. Looking back, Yizan couldn't help but be surprised. "Huh? Who are you? Why are you lying still on the ground?" Chapter 59 _ The King of Cold Humor. "Oh, who is that guy, who is so careless, that he crushed me like this?" The king bit Kiba and stood up from the ground, then glanced at Yizan, picked up his sunglasses, and put them on again. With a solemn expression on his face, as if murderous aura was coming. Staring at Yizan for a few times, the Realm King lowered his voice and asked, "What are you here for?" Yizan nodded and said, "I came here to learn something from you, I hope you can teach me." "Learn something?" The Realm King suddenly became silent, his face became extremely gloomy, and the surrounding atmosphere instantly became a little nervous. Making Yizan feel uncomfortable, he quickly asked the Realm King, "What happened, Realm King?" "Ha ha, you must have been tricked by me." Suddenly, the king burst into laughter, covering his chubby belly, and smiled at Yizan. "Young man, how is my humorous performance?" "This nervous expression, but I practiced hard for a long time to get it. I can teach you, and make sure you become a top 30 humorist, ha ha ha." Quote. Hearing the king's words, Yizan suddenly felt that his embarrassment was about to commit. Yizan said that he could not detect any humor at all, but felt a chill, if there were a few crows calling from above his head. Flying over, it is no longer suitable for his current situation. Wiping the cold sweat on his forehead, Yizan said, "I'm not here to learn humor from you, I'm here to learn how to become stronger and improve my strength." The king scratched his head, then patted his stomach again, and said helplessly, "I'm sorry, I haven't done it for a long time, and I almost forgot how to fight. I may not be able to pay you this, so you should go back." Yizan knew that this old guy was testing him. In the original book, When Wukong came, he said the same thing. In the end, it was not to help Wukong, but to improve his strength. Ignoring Jia Wang's words, Yizan walked to Jia Wang's house alone, came to the door, opened the door directly, and walked in. Seeing someone trespassing into his home, the king of the realm pointed his finger at Yizan and shouted, "You bastard, you can't go in without my permission." But Yizan didn't care about him. He took out a chair from inside, took out a bottle of Coke, sat outside, tasted it slowly, crossed his legs, shook a few times, and said, "Since you don't agree, then I will live here for a while, and I will have an explanation when I go back. I will take a vacation if I have nothing to do. It is comfortable to live here anyway." Quote. Seeing Yizan's arrogant expression and attitude, the realm king clenched his fists in anger and wanted to go up and beat Yizan, but he had not done anything for many years, so he held back. If he couldn't beat Yizan by then, spread it out, how embarrassing it is. However, the realm king was not a vegetarian either. He immediately came up with another solution. He glanced behind Yizan. Behind the tall coconut tree, an ape immediately jumped down. The ape moved very quickly and came behind Jack. While Yizan was resting, he suddenly stretched out his hand and instantly tore off the belt around Yizan's waist. Yeah, Yizan frowned, then reacted quickly, got up and wanted to grab the ape, but he grabbed an empty space, but because of the gravity of Jia Wangsheng, Yizan's speed was a little slow. Yizan used chakra to condense a belt at will, and behind Yizan, the monkey holding Yizan's belt was scurrying around the coconut trees in an arrogant manner. Seeing this scene, the realm king laughed and said, "If you can catch him, I will teach you how to fight. How about it? This is fair, right?" Humph. Yizan raised his brows, nodded and said, "Okay, no problem." After speaking, Yizan instinctively wanted to use Horaishin, but suddenly remembered that in the original book, the battle of the king to cultivate Sun Wukong was indeed chasing after this monkey. Thinking of this, Yizan did not intend to continue to use chakra. On the contrary, it suppressed the movement of chakra, turned to use chi, and began to practice. I saw Yizan lifted a powerful chi from his body, circulated on his legs, and jumped forward, trying to grab the ape, but unfortunately, Yizan just jumped up and was immediately caught by the world. The powerful gravitational force on Wangxing was sucked to the ground. After suffering a dark loss, Yizan quickly got up again and chased in the direction of the ape, but he didn't expect that the ape was moving very fast on Wangxing, and he was like a clumsy child, as if he had just learned to walk. Same. In this way, in order to catch the ape, Yizan ran on Zhuang for more than half a month, and then slowly increased his speed, so that he was no longer so slow on Zhuang. "Don't run, stop for me." Yizan jumped and was already able to jump to a distance of more than 10 meters, but Yizan jumped from this tree to that tree to catch the ape, but he was still slow step. Damn guy. Yizan didn't get discouraged if he couldn't catch up with the ape. He snorted lowly, speeded up again, and chased forward. The king of the realm seems to be more leisurely, watching Yizan and the monkey chasing every day. He began to manually repair the wall that was smashed by Yizan, and repaired 563 points in a day. Not much, just to pass the boredom time. If as a realm king, he wants to know the most, it should be time. Boring life, let him try his best to pass the time. Finally, half a month later, one afternoon, the king of the realm was listening to the radio, cocking his legs, drinking tea, and he finally repaired the wall that was smashed. Suddenly, from the straight stone path, Yizan carried the monkey and walked towards the realm king. The movement and appearance were no longer clumsy, but rather domineering and full of momentum. Looking at Yizan who came over, the realm king was also startled. He didn't expect that Yizan would only take a month to catch the ape, and there were several big monkeys on the ape's head. The bag, at first glance, was beaten badly. "Zhuang, this monkey of yours was caught by me." Yizan threw the ape in his hand in front of the realm king and threw it directly. Ouch! As soon as the ape landed, he hurried to the back of the realm king, hid behind the realm king, looked at Yizan, and seemed a little scared. It seemed that Yizan had just taught him a lesson. Chapter 60 _ Genius learns everything easily. Seeing Yi Zan standing in front of him, the chubby body of the Realm King shook slightly, then stood up slowly, took a sip of tea, and said with a somewhat embarrassed expression, "Very good, I didn't expect you to be so. The mission is almost completed, so I still have some strength." Quote. Originally, the real king wanted Yi Zan to retreat after knowing the difficulty. After he couldn't catch up with the ape, he gave up his practice here. Unexpectedly, Yi Zan really caught up, and even caught the ape and beat him up. "Then you can teach me to practice now?" Yi Zan asked. He is also eager to improve your power. After all, he will soon face a cosmic powerhouse. The Realm King stretched out a finger, scratched his face, then looked into the distance, and said, "Well, I promise to teach you to practice. Now I teach you a very powerful skill, and you will definitely know it." "Like, what is it?" Yi Zan was also a little excited. After all, this guy, the real king, still has 2 strokes, otherwise Wukong would not have greatly improved his strength here. "Teleport," said the king of the realm, and then his index and middle fingers stretched out and tapped lightly on his forehead. Suddenly, the figure moved and disappeared in place. When he reappeared, he was already in another place, a distance from Yi Zan. Baimi was unexpectedly behind. With a slight smile, the Realm King turned around and smiled at Yi Zan. "This is the power of teleportation. As long as you want to move anywhere in your heart, you can instantly move there. Of course, the premise is that your ability is strong enough. It's just a demonstration, otherwise a strength like me can fly out of the Silver River system with just a momentary movement." Yi Zan naturally maintained a lot of doubts about the king's words. Of course, he was not suspicious of the teleportation function, but whether the king could move out of the Silver River system. After all, the farther the distance was, the more chi was consumed. Afterwards, the Realm King handed the method to Yi Zan and asked him to practice first. After mastering the method, Yi Zan was thinking about the Immortal Island, and a teleportation appeared directly above the Immortal Island. Looking at the vast sea, Yi Zan said that this move is nothing. Anyway, he already has the Horaitian technique. The only benefit of this technique is that as long as he knows the place, even if he has not been there, he can reach it. Yi Zan, who was not very interested in this move, did not stay on the Immortal Island for a long time. With a teleport, he returned to Zhuangxing. Seeing that Yi Zan had just teleported out and came back, the real king couldn't help asking, "Where did you go just now, and it took so long to come back?" Yi Zan said indifferently, "I didn't go anywhere, I just went back to Earth." Hearing this answer, the corner of the World King's mouth twitched. He didn't expect that Yi Zan's comprehension ability was so strong that he would be able to go to Earth so quickly. "I learned secretly, but I didn't expect Yi Zan to be stronger than him." In the days that followed, Yi Zan practiced here again for a while, and learned all the skills that the King of Realm knew. Among them, Yi Zan liked the Fist of King of the World. Although it was very harsh to use this ability, the effect was very powerful. Until one day, when Yi Zan had just finished practicing, he returned to the house of the Realm King, sat with the Realm King, picked up a glass of juice, and drank it by himself. At this time, the Realm King turned his head, looked at Yi Zan, and said, "You have been practicing with me for so long, and I have nothing to teach you." Yi Zan nodded, stood up and said, "Trouble you this time, Realm King?" Suddenly, the Realm King waved his hand and said, "I only know some cultivation methods. In terms of strength, I am much worse than you, haha." However, after laughing a few times, the Realm King said to Yi Zan, "You should go back now, the Earth may be in danger soon." "Yeah," Yi Zan nodded and didn't ask what happened to the Earth. Anyway, it must be those bosses. Yi Zan just teleported away from Zhuang and came to the sky above the Earth. Breathing the air on the Earth, Yi Zan felt that he was light and airy, and the chi in his body instantly soared, and his cultivation on Zhuangxing brought a huge change in his strength. "Haha, the opponent below me is Vegeta or Frieza." Yi Zan raised his mouth slightly, looking forward to the next battle. Whoosh! Flying forward, Yi Zan headed for Immortal Turtle's hut. In the sky above Guixian Island, Yizan quickly fell down and shouted into the house, "Bulma, Lanchi, I'm back." Bang dang. The door was opened, and instead of Bulma and Kiki, it was Wukong. Behind him, there were Turtle Immortal and Keelan, who had all returned. As soon as he saw Yizan, Wukong ran over happily. "Brother Yizan, it's great that you are back." After a period of absence, Wukong seems to have grown a lot taller, and his strength has also increased. Keelan and Tianjin Fan have also increased. Nodding his head, Yizan said to Immortal Turtle, "It's great that everyone is back." Turtle Immortal laughed and said, "Yes, this is all thanks to Wukong and Tianjin Fan. They worked tirelessly to find the Dragon Ball and resurrected us all, but thanks to you, they defeated the great demon King Piccolo, the world peace at last." At this time, from the inside of the house, Chi-Chi came out. He was wearing an apron and holding a spoon, and shouted to the crowd, "It's time to eat." After seeing Yizan, Chi-Chi's expression also became a little excited, and then she shouted happily into the room, "Bulma, come quickly and see who is back." Come, I'm holding the soup, why are you excited?" There was a somewhat impatient voice from Bulma from inside the room, but the man came out quickly. Just like Chi-Chi, Bulma, who was wearing an apron, came out with a bowl of fresh soup. When she saw Yi Xuano at the door, the soup in her hand fell to the ground without holding it firmly. "Go down." Whoosh. At this moment, Yizan's figure moved, quickly rushed forward, stopped steadily beside Bulma, reached out and caught the bowl of soup, without spilling a drop.